Hey, I'm Jacob Penrod, author of Beautiful Wild Things, the book you're about to listen to. I hope you enjoy it. I only ask that in exchange for the free audiobook, if you do enjoy it, you leave a review over on Amazon or Goodreads, or most of all, just share it with a friend. The story has changed me in so many ways, and I hope that it touches you as well. Happy listening. Beautiful Wild Things, a Seven Ranger story by Jacob Penrod. I held a star that knew my name. It turned my mind into a pyre. I danced in smoke. I wept in ash, but every time returned to fire. Miri Lowdotter. For those who can't be less. Chapter 1. The difference between a disaster and a genius was a simple matter of presentation. At least, that's what Gwynn Lowdotter told herself as she eyed the fire breather's tools. Across the marketplace, a fire breather rehearsed with his son, maybe 11, Gwyn's age. She needed to get close. The breather was ancient, perhaps in his 40s, with old burn scars framing the corners of his mouth, pale against his dark Amoran skin. He didn't have the crow's feet her father had, or the hair, or the height, or the charming daughter. But he had her fire. She was one oil flask away from fixing everything she'd broken. Gwendolyn, a voice carried from her family's wagon, a long, paint-chipped thing on heavy wheels, more a small house than a cart. You have that look in your eyes again. She groaned. It's Gwyn, Torin. A sharp laugh rang out as a close-bearded man stepped from the wagon, nursing a mug of juniper honey tea. It's Dad, Gwyn. He knelt until their eyes met, and he smiled in his way that banished her anxieties. He'd needed that look a lot lately. What are we looking at? Nothing, Gwyn blurted. Her father raised an eyebrow. You owe me a better lie than that if you expect me to... I'm not lying. Gwyn met her father's eyes, then glanced toward the fire breather's display across the square. I just thought that... His eyes lit up. Don't tell me a little thief is stealing my feather's heart. Gwyn blinked. That could work. She kicked her boots against the stone, adopting her most timid expression. Is that bad? Bad? He laughed, rubbing her shoulder. I couldn't be happier. Tell me, what do you see when you look at him? Gwyn narrowed her eyes. Wealthy patrons surrounded the breather. A stage cleared and ready for her. More chrono than she could spend in a lifetime. Love, Gwyn replied. A low whistle drifted from the wagon. Her mother leaned out, a perfect mirror of what Gwyn would become one day. Green eyes, dozens of braids woven through dark hair, deep tan skin creased with smile lines, probably from Gwyn. Don't fall too fast now. You'll break his heart when he finds out you're only interested in his dog. Gwyn perked up. He has a dog? Her mother tilted her head and walked closer. You didn't know? What's your angle? Gwyn's father stepped between them. She doesn't need an angle to have feelings for someone, Lo. This is good. Normal. He leaned in, lowering his voice. Normal is good. Right, she's smitten. Gwyn's mother met her gaze. So, lovebird, what's his name? Gwyn swore under her breath before she could stop it. Gwendolyn, her mother chided. I said Tucker. Gwyn rocked on her heels, averting her gaze. Please don't tease me, Mom. I really like him. Right, her mother said, fingers still adjusting the feather in one of Gwyn's braids. Gwyn's father placed a hand on the small of his wife's back. Go get the kids ready for the performance. We're on soon. He spun her in a tight circle before kissing her. But Gwyn's safe. He said it like a report. Her mother searched his face, then nodded once. She didn't falter, dropping to a knee and readjusting a feather in Gwyn's braids. Promise me you won't... I won't be crazy, Mom. Gwyn sucked the inside of her cheek. I just want him to like me. Can you introduce me? No. But that's not how you make a good first impression. Your mom introducing you? Go over there, be yourself, laugh at what he says, and I can ask him to teach me, Gwyn said, faster than she'd intended. Her father traced Gwyn's cheek with his thumb. Go have fun, Feather. Everything was coming together. Gwyn skipped toward the boy, threading past stalls thick with smoked herring and bilberry pastries. A walfer bobbed overhead, the tiny whale's wings fluttering as it vacuumed dust from a spice merchant's stall, a sign the vendor could afford to keep the air clean, and a sign that he wasn't paying close attention to his inventory. She darted around a mural depicting their island floating in an endless rainbow sky. A craftsman rummaged in his booth, back turned, practically inviting Gwyn to lift a woven bracelet from the front of the stall. It would be the perfect gift. Her parents would nag her if they saw her stealing, and the nearby fist guard officers certainly wouldn't take kindly to it, so she let her foot snag on a loose box. The bracelet was in her pocket before she hit the ground. The craftsman didn't even notice her fall, too consumed by his supplies. Some people had no consideration for others. Gwyn overturned a wooden box, spilling its contents, and then carried it to the boy and his fire-breathing father. "Brought you two something to sit on," Gwyn said, peeking from behind the box. She set it down between them. "Do you weave for your fire-breathing? My dad says all the best performers weave." The fire-breather laughed, touching his chest with pride. "Not a lick of it. Just pure skill and practice, little sparrow." "He can harden his skull, though," the boy offered. "Makes a funny sound when he knocks on it." His father swatted at him playfully. "That's the only weaving I know, and it's barely worth mentioning." "I'm Gwyn." The fire-breather paused, narrowing his eyes. "Aren't you the girl who tied all the Soul Party Festival flags together?" Gwyn beamed. "That's me." "I spent hours untangling those," the boy protested from beside the fire-breather. "Why did you—" She put a finger to his lips, her voice dropping low. "Superflag was a masterstroke. Or it would have been if the fist guard hadn't ruined it." "How did they ruin it?" the boy asked, his voice barely a squeak, as Gwyn's nose brushed against his. "Officially? Wind currents." "That's not... But I know it was them." The fire-breather chuckled and eased Gwyn back. "Bold little sparrow, aren't you?" "Only for people as interesting as you two." Gwyn bowed, noting the bracelet he wore. Lightly jeweled, clasped with a hook. Even Gale knew better than to wear a hook clasp, and he thought eating whole rolls of butter deepened his voice. Hook clasps were so easy, it would almost be rude not to lift it. She smiled and took the fire-breather's palm in both hands. She squeezed his fingers as her other hand slid to his wrist. Her thumb pressed the hook flat. The bracelet slipped free in a single motion, her warm grip masking the loss. The bracelet fit perfectly in her coat's pocket. She straightened, tucked a braid behind her ear, and looked him in the eye. "My dad says you can't actually breathe fire, but I told him you could." The fire-breather shot a look across the marketplace. "Torrin said that?" "Yep. I believe you, though." "Well, then you're a very smart—" "And then he said, you need the right lighting, or the trick doesn't work." "Well, it's not a trick." "And that real performers don't need props." These aren't props, they're—" "Tools, right. He said you'd say that." She sucked in a quick breath. "Anyway, can you show me? I can make it worth your while." The fire-breather huffed, but paused at the mention of payment. "You've got chrono?" "Well," she tugged on a braid, looking down. "I don't. But my sister and I made this bracelet. It was one of the last things she made before we lost her." Gwyn glanced at her very alive sister pacing in front of the wagon. It was a stupid lie, but her thoughts were tumbling too quickly. She fastened the original bracelet she'd taken around the boy's wrist. "It looks good on you." Thanks. I'm Krugus." "Can you teach me, Krugus?" Gwyn whispered, loud enough for both to hear. He looked to his father. "Is that okay?" The fire-breather hesitated, then chuckled as Gwyn swayed. "I've got more training supplies back in the storage shed. Help me carry it, Krugus. Our little flag twister can wait patiently. We'll make a breather out of her yet. Just water until she has the technique down so she doesn't burn the city to ash. But we'll show her how it's done." Soon they disappeared into a nearby storage building. Gwyn glanced over her shoulder. Her parents were helping her siblings prepare for the performance, backs turned and distracted. She grabbed the performer supplies and ducked behind a cart, closing her eyes and allowing presence to spark within her. It started behind her ribs, a warmth not her own, spreading outward through her chest, arms, and fingertips, like gin filling her veins, the kind she'd tasted when her father wasn't looking. Complete warmth. Comforting, yet foreign. But her flicker wouldn't work if she stayed in control. She thought of the conversation she'd overheard between her parents that morning. How Gwynn was draining them, how they didn't have enough chrono for food, so Mom was going to work at the tavern. The resignation in her father's voice, calling Gwynn a sick animal for the last 7 roosts, unable to get out of bed. She thought of the word he used for her, the one he always used when he thought she couldn't hear. Crazy. Her breath staggered, tears stinging her eyes. Then she looked down. Her hands were dissolving into a fine rainbow mist before scattering to the wind. Good. The flicker was almost there. She thought of Aunt Miri. The church had said it was an accident, but Gwynn had seen this smile. The tears came freely. Gwynn flickered out completely. Her body hummed, rendering her and the fire-breathing equipment completely invisible. Her flicker also dampened the sound of the supplies as she ran into the busiest part of the district. It was showtime. Gwynn climbed atop the tallest cart she could find, trying to relax. She'd pushed hard this time. She had to disappear, had to contribute. As she calmed and reappeared, shouts came from below. She could work with that. "You all reek," she called out, theatrically waving a hand in front of her nose. "You smell like a bunch of people who don't know how to have a good time." "Get down from there," the stall owner shouted as passersby stopped to watch. "Go sober up," Gwynn shot back. "You smell more fermented than those kegs behind you. I'd strike a torch to see you better, but I worry you'd combust." The crowd erupted in laughter, gathering around her as if she ruled the island. In that moment, maybe she did. Gwynn's mind whirled. She'd heard her older siblings talk about fire breathing, watched the performances, and absorbed the technique. Now, intoxicated with confidence, she knew she could pull it off flawlessly. "Now, sirs and sirces," she called out, mimicking her father's festival voice, "I have a story for you, a tale of my birth mother. You may think that you know her, but you'd think wrong. She is an imposter." The story quickened as she spotted her parents searching for her in the distance, still unaware of her presence. "My true mother comes from the volcanic depths of Barg Firspear itself, for she is a dragon." The crowd snickered, yet they indulged her story. Something burned in her chest, just as it did every time she had a great idea, every time she was about to save her family. She uncorked the flask, filling her mouth with bitter oil, fighting the urge to wince. If she thought too hard, she wouldn't go through with it. So she struck a flint, held the flask at her hip, and blew out hard. Gwynn's world hung suspended. Nothing. Then heat and light tore the silence. Flames kissed her skin, roared in her ears, and lit up the square around her. Fire, life, wild, beautiful, and hers. All hers. For a moment, all worry vanished, replaced by wonder as she dazzled the crowd, her crowd, but then the flames continued. A raging ball passed her lips that singed her eyebrows. How did she stop? She'd heard that inhaling even a little could set her throat and lungs aflame, but she could only exhale for so long. Her skin burned from the proximity. In a flash, she pressed her lips closed and swiped at her mouth, but the flame spread to the flask of oil. She screamed and dropped it. Glass shattered. A pool of liquid flame spread before her feet, fierce yet controlled. Not hot enough to ignite a stall reinforced by woodweavers. Usable. Some shouted in panic, but mostly the crowd hung silent, desperate for reassurance. She only had this chance. She sprang forward, leaping high over the flames, a flash of color and wild hair, and landed in a crouch before springing to her feet. The fire burned itself out. "The daughter of a dragon has nothing to fear in the face of fire." Silence, then thunder. Applause enveloped Gwynn as she flowed into a traditional dance of gratitude, her feet barely touching the ground. Shimmering chrono rained down around her, more coins than she'd ever seen from one of her own tricks. Out of the corner of her eye, she noticed the fire breather, looking indignant, reminding the crowd that he was capable of the same feat. But they didn't care. His mother wasn't a dragon. Her father's voice punctured the celebration. Gwyn deflated as he pushed through the crowd, his trembling face pale, but her mother reached her first, crushing Gwyn in an embrace. "Oh, my sweet feather," she whispered. "What? Why did you... Are you hurt?" Before Gwyn could respond, her father gripped her shoulders, testing their sturdiness. His fingers raced down her arms, searching for burns. Then he cradled her cheeks. "Safe?" he rasped. Gwyn beamed. "Safe and rich." No smile met her boast. "Inside, now," he commanded, steering her toward their wagon. As they wove through the thinning crowd, Gwyn's mother collected the rest of the chrono with her siblings, excited voices floating after them. Despite her father's hard demeanor, Gwyn couldn't help breaking into a smile. She had done it. She had saved the family's finances. No more watery soup, no more hand-me-down clothing, maybe even a new mattress, one that wouldn't make her father's back ache so much. They climbed into the wagon, and her father pulled her onto his lap, holding her tight. "You're safe, Gwendolyn?" "It's Gwyn, Dad." "Right, Gwyn." He shifted, searching for the right words. "Why?" Then it all crashed into her. She couldn't cry now. That would only make him feel worse, so she cleared her throat. I heard you and Mom earlier about how we needed money. We need our little girl to be safe. We'll figure out the finances. We always do. We live in a wagon, Dad. I know we're not actually rich, but I can change that. I have talent." Lots of dead people had talent, Feather. He ran his hand over Gwyn's braids, pulling her head tighter against his chest. "If you'd inhaled even a little, it would have... But I didn't inhale, and that's a miracle. Just luck." He buried his head in his hands, then looked up at her. "You were supposed to start weaving classes this migration. Why couldn't I just..." His voice cracked. "Look, Feather, if you want to help with money, then stop the stealing. Stop the one-woman shows. Stop getting people mad at us." Gwyn shrank despite herself. He softened. "Sorry. I know you don't mean to... I just don't know." His body shook as if he had a fever, but no tears fell. "I earned a lot. I think we can turn this into something. Get you a new bed and..." "I don't care about the bed." "Is this like the lake again?" Gwyn groaned. "Ugh, I drowned one time and you never let me forget it. You died, Gwendolyn." "I was going to break a record," Gwyn mumbled. You didn't even know how to swim." He stood, pacing the room, voice tightening. "I still hear it every night. Splashing, gasping, screaming. How am I supposed to handle that?" "Stop trying to handle me. This isn't like the lake," she insisted. "Nothing went wrong this time. I knew I could do it. I just knew." Her father's tone softened. "Remember what we talked about last time. You have so many things running through your mind. Beautiful, wild things that reflect who you are at your core. But you can't trust them. Your mind doesn't work like everyone else's. That doesn't mean you're broken, but you can't believe yourself when you think something." A sudden knock at the wagon interrupted them. Gwyn's older brother Gale poked his head inside, eyes wide with surprise. "Dad, there's someone here to see you." Her father gave Gwyn a firm look, his eyes serious. "Later?" He opened the door before Gwyn could respond. A well-dressed gentleman stood outside in a tailored suit, adorned with elegant tail feathers over fluffy down. His polished shoes gleamed. He offered a courteous smile. "Is this the dragon residence?" Her father straightened, his posture tense. Yes, that's us. Can I help you?" The man reached into his pocket, retrieving an embossed card. "Call me Vala Rawson." He introduced himself with a bow. "I represent Alara Lowdotter. She was thoroughly impressed by your daughter's performance today." Gwyn's ears perked up at the name, but her father was already smiling, the warm, practice smile he used on difficult audiences. "I apologize for the disruption. It's the dragon side of the family coming through." He cleared his throat when Vala didn't smile. "Sorry. It won't happen again. Vala waved a dismissive hand. On the contrary, Alara was delighted, so much so that she wants you to perform at her estate for her daughter's upcoming birth celebration. She even paid off the fire breather your daughter rented tools from. Gwynn stepped forward. When you said Alara Rheadotter, did you mean the Ceres Alara Rheadotter? Vala nodded, his eyes twinkling. The very same. She is prepared to compensate you generously. Gwynn squealed, bouncing on her toes. Dazzling dances, spectacular shows, captive crowds. The images flashed through her mind faster than she could fully form them. Costumes. Music. No, her father said, catching her hand in his and squeezing once. We appreciate the offer, but I'm not the performer I used to be. I can be somewhat unpredictable. Gwynn's heart twisted. Her father was an expert among experts, captivating audiences with a voice that made the birds sing and love-seekers swoon. Storytelling, singing, poetry. If he could say it or sing it, he mastered it. Through each performance, the only unpredictable thing was her. She bit her lip until she tasted something sharp, preferring the sting to the tears welling in her eyes. Vala remained undeterred, clapping her father on the shoulder. Nonsense! Unpredictability is precisely what Ceres Alara wants. Not to mention, she's easily won over by little dragon daughters. It's a natural fit. Gwyn's father hesitated, his eyes flickering to Gwyn. Her mother entered the wagon, hands trembling. We would be honored to perform for Ceres Alara. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Vala beamed, offering a courteous bow. Excellent! We'll send for you on the morning of the celebration. Until then, Almira to you all. With a final nod, he left the wagon. Gwyn's mother, her pockets overflowing with chrono, put her arms around Gwyn's father. This could be the break we've needed. He exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face. It's not safe, Lo. Gwyn stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. I won't be crazy, Dad. I promise. I'll follow the set list exactly. Please let me perform. I want to help. Her father stared at her, his expression hard to read. Feather. Gwyn squeezed his hand. Please trust me. I can be careful. I can follow the rules. Don't make me sit and watch everyone else perform. Her father sighed, but a flicker of fondness entered his eyes as he looked down at their joined hands. Finally, his gaze softened, and a faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. All right. But you stick to the plan, understand? No surprises. No surprises. He wrapped her in an embrace. Then I trust you, Gwendolyn. She didn't bother correcting the name. Chapter 2. The next several roosts blurred together in preparation. The family drilled the routine until Gwyn could run it in her sleep. Tumbling passes, timing, every single cue. Her siblings bickered over transitions. Her father's voice filled the wagon each night as he rehearsed. True to her word, Gwyn behaved, biting back every impulse to make the act objectively more dazzling. By the time of the performance, they were ready. Perfect, even. Gwyn smelled the venue before she saw it, the savory scent of clam fritters and stuffed trout filling the entire North District Square. Alara's estate was less of a house and more of a mansion. Gail said she had 4 bedrooms, her own washroom, and a courtyard with the largest tent Gwyn had ever seen, easily twice the size of Alara's house itself. The interior was filled with countless floating walfers to clean the air, and glowbugs, providing ambience for the banquet tables and performance stage, which sat under a flickering torchlight. Gwyn had been a mundanely perfect child, sitting still while her mother sang to her and decorated all 36 of her braids. Now, though, Gwyn twisted them between her fingers in one hand and drummed on her thigh with the other. This was her moment. She was going to save the family. Gale appeared beside her, adjusting the colorful scarves tucked into his belt. At 16, he looked just like their father, but lacked any of his charm, though he could fool an audience into thinking otherwise. All right, Gwynaroo, here's what you're gonna Gwyned do. Stop, Gwyn said, but couldn't help the smile he always brought. Mom says you gotta be yourself, but why be Gwyn when you could be your charming older brother instead? People are calling you charming? Surprised? Gale puffed his chest. Yeah, surprised that people are thinking of you at all. Gale laughed, pulling Gwyn tighter. Look, you ass. I have a point. If you're going to do something, pause and ask, is this a thing Gale would do? And if it's not, then do whatever I would do instead. You want me to start balding at 16? That's not funny. I'm not balding. I had Mom check. Right, Gwyn said slowly, allowing her eyes to fixate on Gale's hairline. You're probably fine. He covered his head more fully. I know what you're doing. I'm just looking at my brother. Just stick to the plan tonight, okay? When have I ever not stuck to the plan? Gwyn asked, eyes still on the non-existent bald spot. Astrid, her older sister, snorted from where she was stretching against the wall, one leg extended impossibly high. Soul Party Festival, the lake, yesterday when you licked that... Those were different, Gwyn protested. They're always different. Astrid lowered her leg and shot Gwyn a look that cut deep. At 14, she had already mastered the art of the judgmental glare, a skill Gwyn secretly admired. Just don't be you for one night. Be boring. Astrid, Gale said. I already told her to be me instead. What, balding? Astrid returned to her stretches, a barely hidden smirk flashing Gwyn's way, before her expression turned serious. We finally have a real job, a chrono-making job, and if Gwyn decides to... That's enough. Freya, Gwyn's other sister, swept over, papers in hand. Every strand of her hair was pinned in perfect order, despite the backstage humidity. At 15, she'd appointed herself the family's unofficial manager and took the role seriously. She knows what's at stake, don't you, Gwyn? Gwyn nodded, though her mind was already racing ahead to the performance. The standard routine they'd rehearsed was good, solid. But was it unforgettable? Would it be enough to secure more bookings like this? Good. Freya checked her notes. We're on in 5 minutes. Gale, you open with the volunteer juggling. Do good so they don't focus on your bald spot. I'm not... Astrid, you and I follow with a contortion duet. Mom handles the falsetto and sword swallowing. Dad handles the storytelling set. Gwyn... She looked up, her expression pointed. You do your tumbling routine, exactly as rehearsed. No improvisation. No improvisation, Gwyn repeated. I mean it. I know you mean it. Freya studied her for a long moment, then sighed and moved on to review something with their mother. Gale squeezed Gwyn's shoulders. You really do have this. Your tumbling is brilliant. Just be brilliant the way we planned, all right? Before Gwyn could respond, their father appeared, pulling the whole family into a quick huddle. His hands were steady, but there was something tight in his face. We're gonna be spectacular, he said softly. We're gonna show them what our family can do, and we're gonna stick together out there. His eyes found Gwyn's. Right, Feather? The nickname made her chest tighten. Right. He held her gaze a moment longer, then nodded and released them. Places. The music swelled. The curtain rose. The world expanded into pure light. From the wings, Gwyn took in the entire room. The crowd was everything she had imagined, and nothing like she'd expected. Rows upon rows of elaborate feathered dresses and tailored suits, jewels catching the light, faces carved with polite interest, but not quite enthusiasm. They applauded Gale's juggling, especially when he incorporated a patron's ornate fan, a wine bottle, and someone's shoe into his routine. But the applause was measured, controlled. Astrid and Freya took the stage, their bodies folding and twisting into shapes that should have been impossible. The crowd gasped appreciatively, but quietly, politely. Her mother's performance drew more reaction. The falsetto rendition of popular ballads had several patrons singing along under their breath, and the sword swallowing earned genuine gasps and nervous laughter. But still, that reserve remained, that rich snob brand of restraint. Even her father's storytelling, which had the front rows genuinely leaning in, couldn't crack the reserve in the back. Would Ser Solara remember them tomorrow at this rate? Would anyone in the crowd? Gwyn's turn arrived, and she cartwheeled onto the stage with boring precision. The routine she'd rehearsed flowed through her muscle memory. Tumbling passes, backflips, a series of one-armed handstands that drew appreciative murmurs. She landed each move exactly as planned, her breathing controlled, her movements sharp. The applause was warm. Not enough. She flipped again, belting out a tavern song she'd been punished for singing in the past. Now wasn't the time for timidity. It should have been a hit, but the applause was fading, not growing. Classic mistake, overstaying her welcome. Stupid. She bowed, her eyes landing on Sarah in her balcony. The woman was watching, but her attention seemed to drift to her companion. Not bored, exactly, but not captivated either. And then Gwynn saw Lara's daughter sitting beside her, maybe 13 or 14, with the same round face as her mother, but eyes that seemed older somehow. Sadder. An idea bloomed in Gwynn's mind, bright and perfect and undeniable. Sarah was known across the island for her lyricism. That's what had made her fortune. She didn't want to see other people celebrated when she could be the feature act herself, and what better than to highlight her daughter right alongside her? No need to exit the stage quite yet. Sirs and Circes! Gwynn's voice rang out across the theater before she could examine the impulse. Her family's faces turned toward her from the wings, Freya's eyes widening in alarm, Gale mouthing, "What would I do?" and motioning her to get off stage. Astrid already shaking her head and turning away, as if she could pretend they weren't related. What would Gale do? He didn't back down. He won crowds over despite his looks, and if Gale could do it... I have a proposal for you all. A challenge, if you will. The words spilled out. The crowd's murmuring quieted. Alara leaned forward slightly. As you all know, Gwynn continued, pacing the stage with flair, Sarah Solara herself is a master of musical composition, a legend in her own right. She looked up at the balcony, offering her most charming smile. And who could forget her beautiful daughter tonight? What do you say we put on a different kind of show? Her father's eyes burned into her from backstage. Gale took a half step forward, but Freya yanked him back. They all knew better than to interrupt a showstopper. 3 of us, myself, Sarah Solara, and her talented daughter, will each have a chance to write a song. 15 minutes, and when we return, we'll perform them for you all. A friendly competition. She gestured to her family. And while we work, my incredible family will continue to dazzle you with their acrobatics and artistry. The crowd buzzed with interest. Several patrons were already leaning toward their neighbors, whispering. And when we're done, maybe Alara could even give us a concert of new ballads never heard by mortal... Her father rushed the stage. Oh, I'm sure Sarah Solara would much rather watch than participate in... Boo! Gwynn jeered, riling the audience. Soon, they were on her side, booing and laughing until Gwynn's father threw a hand to his chest in mock pain. Oh, you wound me! You'd rather see 15 minutes of writing than my rehearsed... Yes! Gwynn yelled through a laugh, waving her hands to get the audience chanting with her. Let them write! Let them write! It spread like fire in an oil spill, and soon her father was consumed. He tried to speak several more times, but went unheard. Finally, he swallowed, nodded, and walked off stage to adjust the plan with the family. This was what performing was all about, reading the room, giving them what they wanted. He'd thank her later if he could pull himself away from their mountains of chrono. In her private seating, Alara's face flickered through several expressions: surprise, curiosity, barely contained enthusiasm, before settling into a smile so brimming with gratitude that her eye twitched in rhythm with the corners of her mouth. No one could refuse such an invitation in front of hundreds of guests without killing the fun. What a delightful idea, Alara said, her voice projecting across the theater. I would be honored to participate, though I warn you, I haven't performed publicly in over a migration. I'm retired. Retired? You're not that old. Gwynn laughed, gesturing broadly. The crowd chuckled. They loved it. Loved her. She could capitalize. How old are you, really? Everyone wants to know. Alara stammered. Joking, Gwynn lied. But I've heard the stories. You never really retire. I really am. Bah! I can hardly see you through all that modesty. Gwynn leaned in, squinting theatrically, though she couldn't suppress her giddy smile. Bring your daughter up, too. The girl looked startled, then glanced at her mother. Alara's smile tightened before she nodded. Of course. My Kessa would love to participate. Wouldn't you, darling? Kessa nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. Excellent! Gwynn clapped her hands together. 15 minutes, starting in 3, 2, go! The theater buzzed with confusion. Attendants looked to Alara, who gave a tight nod. Somebody produced papers and quills. Kessa bent over her paper, lost in thought. Gwynn hopped off the stage, accepting paper and a quill from a bewildered server, and settled cross-legged right there in front of the stage. To her side, her father stood frozen, face pale. Her mother had one hand pressed to her mouth. Her siblings comforted their parents. But the crowd was engaged now, leaning forward in their seats, talking excitedly amongst themselves. This was working. Gwynn settled, quill in hand, and let the words flow. The 15 minutes passed in a rush. Her father told another story that got a little confusing in the middle, but it was intentional. It was possibly the best tale he'd ever told, maybe the best anyone had ever told. Astrid and Freya repeated their contortion work with new variations, nearly losing balance, but nobody noticed. Gale juggled again, spellbinding the audience despite the fumble in his juggling. The scattered applause shifted as her mother took the stage, and then the room was hers. She sauntered through a beloved folk ballad with a knowing smile, dropping little asides to the audience that had them laughing. Then she launched into a bawdy tavern song, her voice rich with innuendo as she teased the wealthy patrons in their boxes and pulled a blushing banker up to help with the chorus. During practices, Gwynn and her siblings had to convince her the jokes went over their heads so she would still perform around them. But there was only so much a child could pretend to misunderstand. Her mother winked, she swayed, she made every person in the room feel like she was performing just for them. 5 solid minutes of pure showmanship. Gwynn was going to astound them. She tried not to squeal in laughter as she wrote her final line. The crowd's attention kept drifting, waiting for the real show. When the time came, Gwynn bounded back onto the stage, her song memorized, her confidence charged. The theater quieted immediately. Her father stepped back onto the stage, his professional mask firmly in place. Well then, shall we see what our talented composers have created? His voice was warm, controlled. He was trying to make it even better. Sirs Alara, would you like to decide the order? Alara's voice drifted down from her box. Kessa will perform first. An attendant helped the girl onto stage. She looked small there, vulnerable. But when she opened her mouth to sing, her voice was strong and clear. You tilt your head when I stumble. Your smile knows it when I lie. I keep a pocket full of phrases and call it kindling for the fire. Now you're a willow in a tempest. I'll tie myself to you with twine. Thought we were walking in the weather, but you were running down my line. When Kessa finished, the silence held for 3 heartbeats before the crowd erupted. Kessa gave a small, uncertain bow, then hurried back up to the balcony, her face flushed. Gwynn's confidence wavered for the first time. How was she supposed to follow that? But she was committed now. She strode to center stage, pushed down her doubt, and launched into her piece with theatrical flair. There was a merchant named Bjorn whose pastries were flaky and fresh. But one single bite left me reeling in fright and screaming like I had met my death. A few scattered laughs. Good, she continued. They're crusty and buttery too, but they'll blast your poor gut right through. I barely sat down when I painted the town in 12 separate shades of poo. The crowd bubbled with laughter, some genuine, others scandalized gasps from the rows. Gwynn grinned, taking a theatrical bow. She caught Alara's frozen smile and felt a tiny pang of guilt. She'd set the bar quite high, but Alara was a legend. If anyone could top her performance, it was Ceres Alara Rheodotter. Alara descended from her place, her dress rustling with each step. The crowd settled into expectant silence as Alara took center stage, one hand pressed dramatically to her chest. Gwynn held her breath. Alara opened her mouth and began. If I only had you by me, darling, then at last I would finally let myself begin to see how much I like you, darling, 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 darling. Gwyn's smile began to falter. Where was the imagery, the metaphor? You're just the one I see, darling, darling, if I loved you like I loved, darling. Alara trailed off, her mouth working soundlessly. She glanced toward her balcony, where Kessa sat, then back to the crowd with a nervous laugh. Apologies. My throat is a bit dry, and the torchlight is dim. I should have brought my notes down with me. Being retired is harder than you'd think. The crowd offered polite, encouraging applause, but there was confusion in their faces and the awkward shifting in seats. This didn't make sense. Ceres Alara was a master, a legend. She must be playing it down, making herself look foolish to let Kessa shine. It was sweet, in a way, but unnecessary. Don't give up already, Gwynn called out, half laughing. We barely started. Show us what you've got. The crowd murmured agreement. Some even applauded. I appreciate your confidence, dear, but I did warn you. Okay, new game, Gwynn announced to the crowd, her mind racing. I'll start a line. Ceres Alara finishes it. Ready? She began singing. Don't lose me if it's dark. My love is like a... She gestured to Alara, waiting. Alara stared at her. Come on, Gwynn encouraged, still singing. My love is like a... What? Cart? Alara tried weakly. Scattered laughter from the crowd. Perfect! Now you start one. Gwynn beamed. My love is like No, I already did the my love is like thing. Let's just keep the rhyme going. You've got dark and cart. The silence stretched. Someone in the audience coughed. Just put them together, Gwynn prompted, her voice encouraging. My dark cart has a heart, Alara tried, then laughed nervously. I'm sorry, I really am quite out of practice. But Gwynn was frowning now. What was happening? Okay, different approach. What's something you love? Just one thing. I love my daughter. Great, so my daughter is... What? Another long pause. Alara's eyes darted to the side, toward her box again. Like the sun? She finally offered. Wonderful! And what does the sun do? It shines. So put it together. My daughter's like the sun that shines. Several patrons were whispering behind their hands. Gwynn tried 3 more times, each prompt simpler than the last, each failure more pronounced. Something was very wrong. She stared at Alara, shaking her head in bewilderment. Come on, she said quietly. Do something. The words hung in the air. Alara's face flushed crimson. All right, then. Here's one for you, little dragon. Think twice of me, remember me oft. The first time's polite, the second is... And that's when Gwynn followed her line of sight. Alara wasn't looking at the crowd. She was looking up at her balcony, at Kessa, and Kessa's lips were moving. The realization staggered Gwynn. You're reading her lips, she said, voice barely above a whisper. Then louder. You're reading her lips. This was it, the thing that would make tonight unforgettable. Not just a performance, but a story. And stories were what people paid for, what they came back for. Alara would thank her for this. The crowd would love her for giving Kessa her moment. This was how you secured the next booking, and the one after that. I don't know what you... No, that's it. That's how you did it just now. Gwynn's mind raced, pieces falling into place. Watch. Everyone watch. Before anyone could stop her, Gwynn positioned herself directly between Alara and the box, blocking the sightline. Okay, Ser Solara, just you and me. Finish this. My heart is like a... Alara's mouth opened, but nothing came out. What rhymes with, you're like a star? Nothing, just Alara's increasingly frantic attempts to peer past Gwynn's shoulder. Anything at all, just one line. Silence. Then Gwynn stepped aside. Immediately, Alara's eyes locked onto Kessa. The girl's lips moved, forming words, and Alara, with sudden inspiration, began. You're like a star, you shine so close, but... Gwynn moved back between them. Alara's voice died mid-sentence. The crowd murmured. Oh my God, someone whispered loud enough to carry. Gwynn turned to the audience, her heart hammering. She was doing the right thing, exposing fraud, championing real talent. Kessa, will you come down here, please? Little dragon, I really don't think... The crowd wants to know, don't you? Gwynn addressed the audience, who responded with enthusiastic agreement. They were invested now, leaning forward, hungry for the story. An attendant helped Kessa onto the stage. The girl looked terrified, but Gwynn offered what she hoped was an encouraging smile. Kessa, that beautiful song you performed. Did you write it? Kessa glanced at her mother, then nodded slowly. And have you written other songs? Songs your mother has performed? Another nod, smaller this time. How many? All of them? Kessa whispered. Then with more conviction, all of them. For 5 migrations now. The crowd erupted, shouts of disbelief, outrage, fascination. For some patrons, this was the most excitement they'd ever known, and Gwynn felt their energy feed her own. They were hers. From the wing, she caught sight of her family. Her father's face was ashen, one hand gripping the curtain. Her mother's hands were pressed to her mouth. Gale reached toward the stage as if to pull her back. Astrid had turned completely away, and Freya stood frozen, her papers fallen to the floor. Of course, they were worried about payment, about whether the scandal would cost them their fee. They'd worked so hard for this. She could fix that too. This is wonderful! We've just witnessed the revelation of a true genius. Kessa, you are the real artist here. And I think, she said, looking pointedly at Alara, that the island deserves to hear your work performed by you. Don't you all agree? The crowd roared its approval. Ser Solara, Gwynn said, her voice taking on a ceremonial quality. Will you pledge, here in front of all these witnesses, that Kessa will perform her own compositions for the rest of the migration? Alara's jaw worked, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. But she was trapped, hundreds of eyes watching, waiting. Yes, she said through gritted teeth. Of course, Kessa should share her gifts. Wonderful! Gwynn beamed. Then, as if the thought had just occurred to her, oh, and Ser Solara, while you have your coin purse out, our performance fee? The theater went silent. What? Our payment for tonight's performance? Gwynn gestured to her family in the wings. We did provide quite the entertainment, after all. Alara's face transformed. The humiliation crystallized into something harder, colder. She reached for her purse, then stopped, forcing a laugh. Oh, you're joking, of course. Very funny, young... The crowd booed. It started as a murmur, but grew rapidly. Pay them! Someone shouted from the back. They earned it! Another voice called. Pay! 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 The chant built. Pay them! Pay them! Pay them! Alara's hand trembled as she opened her purse. She counted out stone chrono, more than they'd agreed on, actually, and pressed them into Gwynn's hand with enough force to hurt. Here, she hissed. "Take it and get out of my estate." But Gwyn barely heard the venom in her voice. She was staring at the coins piled high in her hands, more money than she'd seen in ages. They'd done it. They'd secured their future. They'd exposed injustice. They'd championed real talent. She'd saved everything. Gwyn ran to the wings, coins spilling from her arms, her face split in a grin. Her father stood there, and she rushed toward him, ready to show him the fruits of her brilliance. "Dad, look! I got us—" "That's enough, Gwendolyn." His jaw trembled as he paced. He clenched his hair, chest heaving. It's Gwyn, but I'm—" "Enough!" The word cracked through the air as he punched a stage mirror. The glass shattered, and blood streaked down his fist. Gwyn had never heard her father yell before, not once in her life. His voice had always been gentle, patient, soft as a lullaby. This was thunder. The coins slipped from Gwyn's hand, clattering across the floor with a harsh din. Her father's face was red, veins standing out in his neck, his whole body shaking. And then she felt it. The familiar dissolving sensation starting in her fingertips. It moved through her like something with its own intentions, and she couldn't find the edges of it to push back. Her flicker activated without permission, her body trying to disappear, to stop existing entirely. "Feather," his voice cracked, anger already transforming into horror. "Wait, I didn't mean—" But Gwyn was already running. She flickered between visible and invisible, her form unstable, tears blurring what little she could still see. Behind her, she heard her father calling her name, voice cracking. She forced herself to look back, just for a moment, long enough to see his face, the shock, the immediate regret, the bloodied hand reaching out toward where she'd been. His mouth formed her name, but she couldn't hear it over the roaring in her ears. Then she was gone, fully transparent, fleeing into the night. Behind her, scattered across the floor, coins glinted in the light, the only evidence she'd been there at all. Chapter 3. Gwyn stumbled through streets she barely recognized, blinking away her tears. She knew she'd run south from the North District. The Central District's Fazot statue loomed ahead, massive and silent in the rainbow night, watching her flee with its blank shoebill eyes. As she crossed one of the bridges over the canal, the buildings changed, peaked roofs giving way to cramped tenements, decorative knotwork replaced by weathered wood and peeling paint. By the time she ran out of breath, the streets had narrowed into a maze. Alleys curved without logic. Buildings leaned over her like they might collapse at any moment. Paths winding between structures built without any plan or permission. The brilliant, unstoppable energy that had fueled her performance had vanished completely. In its place was an emptiness. Her thoughts were sludge, each one requiring effort to form. She deserved this. Why couldn't she just stop? Why should she? She'd been right about Alara. The woman had been stealing her daughter's work for migrations. That was wrong. Gwyn had simply exposed it. But the way the money scattered across the floor, her family's horrified faces, the way her mother's hand had flown to her mouth. Gwyn's foot caught on uneven cobblestone, and she stumbled, catching herself against a wall. Her palm came away damp with something that smelled foul. She didn't want to know what. The scraps. She was in the scraps of the South District now. Even in her muddled state, she knew this was the worst part of the city, where the desperate came to disappear, where the Fiskard only ventured in groups, and even then, reluctantly. Good. It would suit her. The alley behind Herrick's tavern was darker than the street, if that was possible. Gwyn found a gap between two crates and a trash heap and wedged herself into it. The smell was pungent, but her body felt too distant to react. She pulled her knees to her chest and let her head fall forward. No tears came. Time passed, minutes or hours, she couldn't tell. Her mind had gone slow and fuzzy, thoughts half forming before dissolving. Then, voices. Close. "I told you I'd have it by yesterday," came a man's voice, reedy and desperate. "I just need one more roost. I swear." "You said that last time," came a different voice, calm, almost quiet, almost more frightening for its lack of emotion. And the time before that. I had it. I did. But then medical expenses. My kid got sick and I had to... You spent it on pith. I didn't. I can smell it on you. Your eyes are yellow. Don't insult me by lying. Gwynn pressed herself deeper into the gap between the crates. Her transparency flickered, but she couldn't make it stick. Please, the desperate man begged. Just one more chance. I'll get it. Impact. A body hitting a wall. You know what needs to happen. Gwynn's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a gasp. She squeezed her eyes shut. Don't look. Don't move. Don't breathe. Another impact. A pained cry, cut short. Then, sound she couldn't bear to understand. A struggle, a groan that stretched too long. Then, snapped silent. Silence. Gwynn squeezed her eyes shut, her whole body trembling. She'd heard fights before, drunken brawls outside taverns, siblings wrestling, but this was different. This had a finality that made her stomach turn. Heavy breathing, not panicked, controlled, like someone who had just finished difficult work. Footsteps receded from her hiding spot. A scrape followed, something heavy and awkward being dragged. Fabric rustling against stone. She should run while he was distracted, while she had a chance. Her legs wouldn't work. Her whole body locked up, fear and exhaustion pinning her in place. The dragging sound faded. A door opened somewhere, then closed. Gwynn's heart hammered a frantic drumbeat. She made herself as small as possible, every muscle locked, barely daring to breathe. Seconds crawled past. Maybe he was gone. Maybe she could... A whine. Close. Too close. A dog's wet nose pressed against her arm. Gwynn's eyes snapped open. A shaggy shepherd dog stood before her hiding spot, its long fur tangled and dirty, eyes clouded. It whined again, louder, pressing its muzzle against her, tail wagging weakly. No, Gwynn whispered. No, please, shh. The footsteps returned. Spore? The calm voice, now tinged with curiosity. What'd you find, boy? The dog whined again, pawing at the crate. His tail wagged harder, like he'd found something wonderful. Stupid dog. Stupid, stupid dog. Gwynn tried to activate her flicker, but nothing happened. Too exhausted. Too empty. The crate shifted, scraped against stone. Light from a distant lamp spilled into her hiding spot. A man crouched there, middle-aged, with silver threading his dark hair. His hands were stained dark. She didn't let herself think why. His expression unreadable. He looked at her, taking in her colorful performance clothes, now filthy and torn. His gaze flickered to her hands, pausing at the faint shimmer of failed transparency still clinging to her fingertips. She was going to die. Death in an alley in the scraps because she couldn't stop herself from ruining everything, because she'd run instead of staying home, because she was broken and stupid and... The man's face softened. Hey, listen, he said quietly. I'm not going to hurt you. Gwynn pressed herself harder against the trash heap, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. The dog, Spore, whined, trying to crawl into the gap with her, his tail still wagging like it was all a game. Easy now, the man said, not moving closer. You didn't see anything, all right? He stayed crouched, hands visible, patient, like he had all the time in the world, like there wasn't a body somewhere behind him. Gwynn's eyes darted past him, searching the alley, looking for escape routes. You didn't see anything, he repeated. Did you? She shook her head quickly. Too quickly. His eyes narrowed slightly, assessing. Then he nodded, seeming to accept it, or choosing to. Good. He shifted his weight, still keeping his distance. You hurt? Gwynn shook her head again. You alone? A nod this time. Parents? She shook her head. Shit, kid. The man was quiet for a moment. If anyone asks going forward, you aren't alone. You've got 2 big brothers in the fist guard looking for you. He relaxed against the wall, resting his weight on one leg. What are you in the scraps for, anyway? Her throat tightened. She couldn't answer that. Couldn't explain about the theater, about the yelling, about how she'd ruined everything and run. The man studied her face for a long moment. You eat lately? I had soup this morning, Gwynn managed. You look like that's all you've had in a migration. Gwynn lowered her head, taking a shaking breath. Soup is good. It's warm, and you just add water and it doubles. All right, he said finally. Here's what's happening. You're coming out of there, and we're going inside where it's warm to get you cleaned up with a proper meal. Understand? I can't. Not asking. He straightened against the wall. If you stay out here and someone else finds you, they won't be as nice about it as me. Gwen's hands trembled. She looked at the dog, who had given up trying to reach her and was now sitting at the man's feet, tail thumping against the ground. Spore doesn't bite, the man added. He can barely see, but he's got good instincts about people. A pause. Usually. Slowly, Gwynn crawled out of her hiding spot. Her legs nearly gave out when she tried to stand, exhaustion and fear turning her muscles to water. She swayed. The man caught her elbow, steadying her. His grip was firm, but not rough. He released her arm and gestured toward the back door of the tavern. Inside, now. Gwynn walked on shaking legs, the dog pressing against her side like he was trying to hold her up. The man followed a few paces behind, close enough to catch her if she fell, but far enough to not crowd her. The back room of Tarek's tavern was dimly lit, and smelled of old gin and smoke, furnished with a few chairs, a table scattered with cards, and coats hung on pegs. The man pulled out a chair and pointed. Sit. She sat. He pulled bread and cheese from a cabinet and set them on the table before her. Then he poured water from a pitcher into a cup and placed it beside the food. Eat. Gwynn stared at the food. Her stomach cramped with hunger, but the thought of eating made her nauseous. Not asking twice, he said, settling into the chair across from her. He pulled out a cloth and methodically cleaned his hands. The stains came away slowly. She picked up the bread with trembling fingers and took a small bite. It was stale, but she was too hungry to care. Once she started, she couldn't stop, cramming bread and cheese into her mouth until the man pushed water toward her. Slower. She drank, forced herself to slow down, and kept eating. The dog settled at her feet with a contented sigh. The man watched her, his expression unreadable. When she'd finished most of the food, he leaned back in his chair. Got a name? Gwynn. Dervin. He gestured to the dog. That's Spore. He belonged to someone who doesn't need him anymore. Her stomach twisted, but she kept her face neutral. So, Gwynn. Dervin's voice was conversational, almost casual. You run away from home or just out late at night for fun? The word stuck. I ran away. Why? I messed up, she whispered. Everyone messes up. Not like me. Her hands curled into fists on the table. Dervin was quiet for a moment. What'd you do? The tears finally came, hot and stinging and unstoppable. Gwynn pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to force them back, but they kept coming. She gasped. I just wanted to help, to make it unforgettable. My brain is bad, and I get these ideas, and they seem so perfect, and I can't stop them, and... She hiccuped, wiping furiously at her face. I just want it to stop. Want what to stop? Gwynn looked away, her eyes stinging sharp. Just this. Dervin leaned forward slightly, his elbows on the table. How long's it been like this? I don't know. She sniffled, looking down at her hands. I just need to be more careful next time. Not be crazy. Is that what you are? Gwynn nodded weakly. Dad says it when he thinks I'm asleep. Mom, too. Dervin shrugged. Well, that's finished then. If a couple of adults said it, it must be true. You don't understand. Gwynn's voice rose, desperate. Tonight was just... I made a mistake. One mistake. If I just stuck to the plan... Yeah, you'd be all sorted out if you were different, wouldn't you? Dervin said. He stood, moved to a coat rack, and pulled down a worn jacket. Come on, I'm taking you home. No, Gwynn jumped up. I can't. They'll be mad. Yep. They hate me. Maybe so. He held out the jacket. Taking you anyway. Put this on. It's cold. Dervin paused before sighing. They don't hate you. You don't know them. I know enough. Dervin's voice was firm, but not unkind. I know parents who hate their kids, don't teach them music and tumbling, and put feathers in their hair. Gwyn's chin trembled. He yelled. Dervin draped the jacket over her shoulders. You ran off into the scraps. I'd have yelled too. But he doesn't hate you. How do you know? You're just a... Just a what? Dervin straightened, looming over Gwyn. Nothing. Say it. Gwyn swallowed. You kill people. For the first time, something raw crossed Dervin's face. I thought you were going to say old. You're that too. Yeah, I am, aren't I? Dervin drooped his head. I knew a kid once, and when He stopped, cleared his throat, and started again. When she was in trouble, when she did stupid, dangerous things, I got angry too, yelled sometimes. But I never... Her parents always loved her. Knew? Gwyn whispered. Dervin's jaw tightened. He didn't answer, just turned toward the door and gestured for Spore to follow. The dog looked between them, then padded to Gwyn's side and pressed against her leg. He's yours now, Dervin said. Gwyn knelt and wrapped her arms around the dog's neck. He was warm and solid and real. Can I really... Yeah, now come on. They walked through the scraps in silence, Spore between them, Gwyn's hand resting on the dog's head to guide him. Dervin kept a careful distance, watching the shadows, steering them away from certain corners without explanation. As they left the worst streets behind, Gwyn found her voice again. Why are you helping me? Had to be done. But I saw... You didn't see anything, remember? Even if you did, that man made his choices. Used a kid's medicine money on pith. Defaulted on every payment. That means he didn't pay. He spat on every second chance. He was quiet for a moment. Some choices you don't get a walk back. They walked another block before Gwyn spoke again, her voice barely audible. Does that make you good or bad? Dervin stopped, looking down at her. Doesn't make me either. He started walking again. But you're a good girl. You hear me? From everything you've told me, you're... His voice choked up, hands opening and clenching again, as if grasping at something. Your parents love you. Gwyn thought for a moment. What happened to her? That girl you knew? Spore ate her when she asked too many annoying questions instead of enjoying the quiet city. Gwyn waited for him to laugh at his own joke. He didn't. She gave Spore a wary glance. The streets grew cleaner as they walked, the buildings less broken. Gwyn's steps slowed as they approached the familiar territory. The South District. Not the scraps, but close enough. Home. Which house? Gwyn pointed to their modest wagon parked at the edge of the courtyard. No lanterns burned inside. It looked dark and empty. They're probably still out looking for me, she said quietly, guilt twisting in her stomach. You live in this thing? Dervin studied the wagon, then glanced down the street where two figures moved door to door, calling out. Even from this distance, Gwyn heard the desperation in their voices. Gwyn! Please! Her mother. Wait here, Dervin said, then strode toward them before Gwyn could protest. She watched from the shadows as he approached her parents. Her father saw him first, stepping protectively in front of her mother, shoulders tense. Dervin held up both hands, palms out. She couldn't hear what he said, but she saw her mother's hand fly to her mouth, her father's knees nearly buckle. Then, both looked past Dervin, searching the street. Dervin gestured toward where Gwyn stood with Spore. Her mother broke into a run. Gwyn! She crashed to her knees in front of Gwyn, hands running over her face and arms, checking for injuries. Oh, thank Almec. Are you hurt? I'm okay, Mom. Gwyn's voice came out small. Her father arrived a moment later, breathing hard. His eyes were red, his face pale. He looked at Dervin with an expression Gwyn couldn't read. Where'd you find her? The scraps, Dervin said eventually. Behind Tarek's tavern. She was hiding. Looked like she'd been there a while. The scraps? She's safe now. That's what matters. Dervin's gaze was steady. Fed her, made sure she wasn't hurt, and brought her home. Thank you. Her mother stood, still holding Gwyn's shoulder, like she might disappear again. We've been searching for hours. We thought... Her voice broke. She's a good kid, Dervin said. Her father was still studying him, taking in the worn clothes, the rough hands, the careful way he held himself. You live in the scraps? I work there. Doing what? Business. Dervin's tone didn't change. Her father seemed to understand. His expression shifted, still wary, but grateful. Thank you. Just take care of her. Dervin looked down at Gwyn. And that dog. He's hers now. Dog? Her mother noticed Spore for the first time. Where did you... He's mine, Gwyn said quickly, pulling Spore closer. Please? He doesn't have anyone else. Her parents exchanged a look. Then her mother sighed, defeat and relief mixing on her face. We'll discuss it in the morning. Right now, let's just get you inside. Dervin nodded to them, then turned to walk away before stopping. He cleared his throat. His name, he's Spore. He likes it when you scratch behind his right ear, and he likes sitting by you while you eat, and... Anyway. Dervin paused, his back still turned. Sometimes they leave sooner than you think. Don't hold her so close you snuff her out. Then he was gone, disappearing into the darker streets. Her father stared after him for a long moment before turning back to Gwyn. He knelt down, bringing himself to her level, and pulled her into a tight embrace. I'm sorry, he whispered into her hair. I'm so sorry I yelled. I was scared and Is your hand okay? He held it out for Gwyn to see, not a trace of a cut. Some Lifeweavers stitched it up for me. His voice cracked. We thought we lost you. Gwyn nodded against his chest, unable to speak around the lump in her throat. Let's go home, Feather. Your siblings are with the neighbors tonight, but you need rest. They walked to the wagon together, her parents flanking her like guards. Her mother kept one hand on Gwyn's shoulder the entire way. Inside, the wagon was warm, fur coats and blankets lining the walls. Bath first, her mother said, already heating water. While her mother prepared the water, her father knelt in front of Gwyn again. The dog stays outside tonight, he said gently. We don't know if he has ticks or... Dad, please? We'll get him cleaned up tomorrow, get him checked by someone who knows animals. Then we can talk about him staying. But he's blind. He'll be scared. I'll make him a bed by the door. He'll be safe. Her father's voice was kind but immovable. You need sleep, good sleep, and you can't do that worrying about a dog. Gwyn wanted to argue, but exhaustion was pulling at her so heavily she could barely stand. Okay, she whispered. The bath was brief and mechanical. Her mother scrubbed at her hair, picking out bits of debris, muttering under her breath about the scraps, the danger, or how easily Gwyn could have been hurt. Clean and dressed in her nightclothes, Gwyn was led to her room. Her mother pulled back the blankets, fluffed the pillow, and tucked her in like she was a small child again. Sleep now, Feather, her mother whispered, pressing a kiss to her forehead. We'll talk in the morning. I'm sorry, Mom. I know you are. Her mother's eyes were bright with tears. Sleep. She left, pulling the curtain partially closed behind her. Gwyn lay in the darkness, listening to her parents move through the wagon, banking the fire, checking the door, whispering to each other in voices too low to hear. She should sleep. Her body ached with exhaustion. Her mind felt like it was moving through honey. But Spore was outside, alone, scared. She waited until she heard her parents' door close. She counted to 100. Then she slipped out of bed. The hallway was dark. She moved silently. Migrations of sneaking had taught her which boards creaked, and eased the front door open just enough to slip through. Spore was curled up on a pile of blankets her father had left. He lifted his head when she appeared, tail thumping weakly. Come on, Gwyn whispered, gathering him into her arms. Quiet now. She pulled him inside, moving carefully. They had almost made it back to her room when she heard voices. Can't keep doing this, Torin. We can't. Her mother's voice was thick with tears. Gwyn's heart sank, and she froze. She should go to her room. She shouldn't listen. But her feet wouldn't move. I know. Her father sounded broken. I know, Lo. She could have been killed tonight. Killed. She was in the scraps. Do you understand what could have happened to her? I shouldn't have yelled. If I hadn't yelled, she wouldn't have... This isn't about the yelling. Her mother's voice rose slightly. The lake, the fire breathing, tonight. It's getting worse, Torin. The storms are getting more extreme. She's creative, but she's crazy, Lo. I know she is. I know. Her mother's voice cracked. I look at her and I see my sister. It's how it started for her, too. This won't be like Miri. I have a plan. The words hung in the air, heavy and final. She needs help we can't give her. Silence. Gwyn's arms tightened around Spore. The dog shifted, pressing his muzzle against her neck. The church program? Her mother said quietly. I've told you no. Lo, we talked about this. You said you'd wait. And tonight our daughter ran into the most dangerous part of the city and could have been... His voice broke. We can't wait anymore. What are you saying? I'm saying that we take her for the evaluation. I checked tonight. They have an opening in the schedule in 40 roosts. If they accept her into the program, we let her go. They have Lifeweavers there, people who understand these kinds of children. They can keep her safe. And we just give away our little girl forever? We'd visit, but Lo, this is to save her. Gwyn's breath caught. Give her away? She'll think we're abandoning her, her mother said. She'll be alive. Her father was crying now, not trying to hide it. What if next time she really hurts herself? What if that man in the scraps had been different? We have to face this. We can't keep her safe. More silence, longer this time. Then her father spoke. Do you remember the oatmeal phase? Gwyn's mother broke into a teary laugh. She'd stand by your side of the bed, screaming you awake about how badly she wanted a bowl, and you did it every single morning. Her dad finished. See? I know how to handle that. I can be the oatmeal dad, but this... He motioned to nothing with his hand. I'm scared, Lo. I'm not enough to protect her. Gwyn's flicker ignited, her body slowly becoming invisible again, as a wave of emotion crashed over her. I know, but I can't send my daughter away. Lo, please, just see what they say. Another long silence followed. Gwyn held her breath, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure her parents must hear it. Finally, her mother spoke, slow and measured. An evaluation. Nothing more. No commitments. A long pause. I love her too, Lo. She's my feather. I know. Her mother was crying harder now. When do we tell her? After the evaluation. The people at the church said it's better to wait until we know for certain if she qualifies for the program. No point in scaring her if she'll qualify. Her mother's voice was hollow. You know she will. I know. Gwyn couldn't breathe. The wagon seemed to tilt, the walls closing in. They were going to send her away. She was too much, too wild, too dangerous. Finally, her legs moved. She stumbled back into her room, eased the curtain closed with her shaking hands, and tried to guide Spore to the corner. The dog sniffed at it once, then turned away and clambered onto her bed instead. He didn't settle at her feet or curl beside her. He sprawled directly across her middle, his full weight pressing down on her like an anchor. Gwyn started to protest, but the pressure was soothing. Spore let out a heavy sigh, his blind eyes already closing, and refused to budge. Gwyn crawled under the blankets and pressed herself against Spore's warm body. He smelled terrible, but she didn't care. She buried her face in his fur and tried to breathe. They hated her. She was a problem. The thoughts circled, slower than usual, but relentless. Spore whined softly, then licked her cheek. His rough tongue caught her tears before they fell. Gwynn closed her eyes and held him tighter. Outside the curtain, she could still hear her parents crying, planning, deciding her fate without her. She'd fix this. She had to. She'd prove she could be careful, could be good, could be normal. She'd make them see they didn't need to send her away. 40 roosts until the evaluation. 40 mornings, 40 nights. The fog in her mind was starting to lift, just a little, enough for ideas to spark. She and Spore, they could perform together, prove she wasn't broken, wasn't dangerous. A routine showcasing patience, training, control. Everything her parents wanted to see. The ideas came faster now. Costumes, music. Spore could learn tricks. She'd guide him. They'd be perfect together. One show. One chance. That's all she needed. Spore shifted in his sleep, his weight grounding her. Sleep first. Plan tomorrow. She smiled as her eyes closed, already hearing the applause. Chapter 4. Gwynn did not get out of bed. Spore's warmth stayed beside her. Chapter 5. Gwynn did not get out of bed. Spore rested his weight against her. Chapter 6. Gale brought Spore water in a shallow bowl and helped him outside when his legs wouldn't cooperate. Gwynn's mother brought her soup, her favorite. Clam stew loaded with cheese. It went cold on the nightstand. Spore spilled it on her mother's dress. Gwynn almost smiled. Chapter 7. 5 roosts gone. Gwynn remained. Spore, too. Chapter 8. Gwynn sprang from her bed, morning energy pulsing through her. 34 roosts left. That was enough time. Think. She had to think, or she'd lose her parents, her siblings, her family's show. The show. Her show. The town, the audience, had loved her with the fire breathing, and they were captive at Alara's gathering. She could work them. They just had to see her, get eyes, get attention. Then she'd figure out the rest. She and Spore would be at the attention-grabbing center, the key to keeping her family. The old dog snored in the corner, fur still a tangled mess. Beside him sat a bowl of plain oats with some toasted nuts and rooster honey. Gwynn assumed it was hers. Who had brought that? She'd need the energy if she was going to be doing a full routine with Spore. Gwynn studied the snoring dog lounging nearby. Tangled locks of matted fur. Nobody would take them seriously with him in this condition. She'd fix that first. Hours blurred together. 2, 3, 5? Untwisting tangles, combing curls, straightening scruff. Gwynn's hands throbbed and spasmed from the intricate work. Finally, the detangling was done. Now the braiding. She worked in a trance, fingers moving through the familiar motions of weaving tiny plaits just like her own. Her parents and her siblings tried talking to her, but Gwynn couldn't remember what they'd said, too focused on getting each braid perfect. They'd be a perfect match if she could just see what she was doing in the fading light. Fading light. Gwynn's heart plummeted as she looked at the sun setting in the misty rainbow sky. She'd braided the entire roost away. But Spore was beautiful, and that mattered. She could matter. Early the next morning, the alley stank of piss and rotting vegetables. It was perfect. Gwynn wiped sweat from her forehead, ignoring the tremor in her hands from yesterday's braiding marathon. Spore sprawled across the cracked stones like he'd given up on life entirely, his newly woven braids already collecting dirt and debris. Inevitable, given his age and the alley. "Come on, boy," she whispered, crouching beside him. "Just one flip. Just one. I'll give you..." Spore's milky eyes didn't even track her voice. "Spore, please." She tried again, demonstrating the movement. Nothing. "I really need you to... I need Mom and Dad to... I need..." He snored. Fine, she snapped, frustration bubbling over. Be useless. See if I care. Snores. Damn it! Gwynn kicked a trash heap, the sound echoing off a hollow box. Spore flinched, pressing against the wall and cowering. What had she done? Spore, no, I'm so sorry. She dropped to her knees, running her fingers along Spore's neck. I didn't mean that. You're a good dog. His tail gave a faint thump. She found the sweet spot behind his ear and scratched gently. 3 seconds. That's all it took. His breathing deepened, head lolling to the side. Asleep. Gwynn stared at him, mind racing. Spore, an old dog who fell asleep at the slightest comfort. A dog who wouldn't move once down. You brilliant ancient bastard, she breathed. You just gave me the whole act. She didn't need him to flip. She needed him to stay. And Spore could stay like nobody else. Now she just needed an audience who wouldn't coddle her. Someone who'd be honest. Someone tough. Her gaze drifted toward the marketplace noise bleeding into the alley. An officer berated a young thief for a cluster of pull-apart rolls. The officer and his partner, with the fist guard, carried themselves like they hadn't smiled at migrations. They'd be perfect. Gwynn approached with her brightest smile. Sirs, good morning. I was wondering if you might... Not interested, the young one said, without looking at her as he dismissed the thief. But I haven't even... Still not interested. The older officer, Thompson, according to his nameplate, finally glanced down at her. Go home, kid. Gwynn's eyes landed on the young officer's arm, a simple red feather wedding bracelet around his wrist, slightly too large. Her hand moved before her brain caught up. One fluid motion, bump his elbow, slide the bracelet off, pivot away. Hey! The young officer grabbed for his bare wrist. She just... Gwynn was already running, the wedding bracelet clutched in her fist, her laughter trailing behind her. Get back here! She darted through the marketplace, boots slapping stone. The alley entrance loomed ahead. Behind her, 2 sets of footsteps, heavy, fast, getting closer. Fear spiked through her chest. Real fear, not the fun kind. Her hands started to shimmer. The flicker's transparency spread up her arms, across her torso. She rounded the corner into the alley and pressed herself against the wall, willing herself gone. The officers burst around the corner. Where? The young one, Wilson, she saw on his nameplate, spun in a circle. I saw her come this way. Thompson's eyes swept the alley, right over where Gwynn stood, invisible, heart hammering. He frowned. Must have climbed. Gwynn focused on her breathing, slow, steady. The panic ebbed. Her visibility crept back. She scaled the crumbling wall to a low rooftop, becoming fully solid again as her heart rate slowed and her flicker released. Both officers still searched below, not looking up. Gentlemen, she called. They whirled. Gwynn stood on the roof, silhouetted against the rainbow sunrise. The feather wedding bracelet held high. You couldn't do better than imitation feathers? I know real feather jewelry is illegal and all. But aren't you officers? You could definitely get away with it. She jumped. Not far, just enough to make it look impressive. A tuck, a roll, landing in a perfect crouch at Wilson's feet. She straightened, offering the bracelet with a theatrical bow. My apologies, Sir Wilson. Terribly rude of me. I propose community service as restitution. 1 free performance featuring my associate, Spore. Wilson snatched the bracelet, face red. You little... We're taking you to your parents, Thompson said flatly. No parents. You don't have a say in that, Thompson said. Ein Fedingarskapun. Gwynn smiled, landing the pronunciation she had practiced. The two paused. What? Oldamoric. It's a word you learn when you live a life like mine. Gwynn threw a hand to her forehead. Born alone, created by life itself. In Thompson's terms, no mom or dad for little me. Sure, Wilson said. Let's go to headquarters then. Do you have time for a song first? No. Gwynn was already singing. There once was a fist guard named Wilson, who chased a small girl but she killed him. Not with a knife but by stealing his wife. Wasn't hard when she realized he's short. Wilson's mouth twitched. That didn't rhyme. Sorry. Gwynn threw a hand to her heart. My teacher was, well, not a native speaker. She gestured to Spore. But at least he knows what Einwettingskarskepoen means, officers. Wilson tried to hold it, but a sharp laugh burst out. Thompson's expression didn't change. Clever. Now, please, Gwynn said, dropping the performance. I just need someone to watch, someone honest. You won't lie about whether it's good, right? Thompson studied her. Something shifted in his weathered face. 5 minutes. Thompson, 5 minutes. Gwynn's grin could have lit the alley. She gestured with sweeping arms toward the sleeping dog. Then allow me to introduce my father. She cartwheeled over his sleeping form, landing with her hand lightly touching his braided back. Dad, did you see? Was it good? Spore snored. Gwynn pressed her ear to his side, nodding seriously. He says my form was sloppy. Also, he's very disappointed in my life choices. Wilson snorted. Can imagine why. You know what he says to me every single day? Gwynn sprang up. Rough, rough, rough. That's all. Just rough over and over. It's enough to give someone pause. The officer stared. Pause? Pause? She motioned to her feet. Wilson and Thompson groaned. Never mind, Dad. Watch this one. She ran, planted her foot on the wall, and pushed off, spinning. The world blurred. Her stomach dropped as she tucked tight, then opened at the last second to land directly in front of Spore. The sound should have woken him. He thumped his tail once. Then he kept snoring. What's that word you love so much, Dad? The one you use for everything I do? Starts with rough, Thompson offered with a smirk. Rudimentary. She grinned at the officers, still balanced. Fancy word for a dog, right? Okay, Dad, this one's going to stun you. She jumped down and grabbed a loose brick and placed it right in front of Spore's nose. She took a running start and flipped backwards, hands finding the brick. The world went upside down. Her arms screamed, holding the weight. She stayed there, inverted, perfectly still, balanced in front of the sleeping dog. Dad? Spore wheezed. See? So impressed he can't even speak. That's good, right? Her voice strained. She pushed off, twisted through the air, and landed hard. The brick clattered away. Spore kept sleeping. Okay. Her breath came faster. You want real talent? Dad, you're going to love this one. This is the one you've been waiting for. She climbed a crate, pulled herself up to a windowsill, and looked down. Spore seemed impossibly small below. Wake up if you love me! She jumped. Not safe, out and up. For a heartbeat, she was flying, horizontal, suspended. Then she tucked, and the world spun once, twice, 3 times. Everything blurred until she opened, and the ground rushed up, and she landed in a crouch beside Spore's head with a crack that rattled her bones. Spore's ear flicked. Nothing else. Gwynn stayed crouched there, breathing hard. He's pacing himself, she said quietly. That's wisdom. You can't give everything away at once. You have to save some for later, for when it really counts. She stood abruptly, clapping her hands. So, what do you think, officers? Wilson stared at her. Not bad. Thompson's face finally softened. You're very talented, kid. Wilson pulled out a strip of fish jerky from his pack. Maybe this'll wake him up. He waved it under Spore's nose. The dog's nostrils twitched. His head shifted slightly. And he kept sleeping. Unbelievable, Wilson said. That's dedication, Gwynn said proudly. Migrations of training. He won't break his stay for anything. I'm pretty sure he's... Wilson started. He's what, Sir Wilson? Just the best trained dog in Amora? I know! Thompson was actually chuckling now, a low rumble. Gwynn's heart soared. She had them. Movement at the alley entrance caught her eye. A woman, beautiful and well-dressed, walking past. Not just any woman. The officers went rigid when they saw her. More audience. Better data. Sarce! Gwynn called before she could think better of it. Excuse me, Sarce! Wilson went pale. Thompson's hands twitched toward his belt. The woman stopped, turning with a curious smile. Gwynn saw it then. The careful way she held herself, like someone used to being watched. The slight hesitation before she spoke. Is everything all right? Her voice was soft, genuinely concerned. Everything's wonderful. I was just performing for these fine officers, and I thought, well, 3's better than 2 for audience feedback, don't you think? The woman glanced at the officers. Wilson looked like he might vomit. Thompson's face had gone carefully blank. I really should, the woman began. Just 1 minute, Gwynn pressed. Please, I'm trying to impress my father. She gestured to Spore. As you can see, it's not going well. The woman's smile warmed when she looked at Spore sleeping. Well, I suppose 1 minute couldn't hurt. I'm Novella. She settled onto a crate, smoothing her dress. Gwynn didn't miss how the officers stood straighter, or how Thompson positioned himself slightly between the woman and the alley exit. Interesting. But Gwynn was performing now, and the rest could wait. She launched into an elaborate tumbling sequence, narrating as she went. You see, my mother is a dragon, fierce, beautiful, thinks I'm wonderful. But my father, she did a handstand above Spore. He's a dog, old, tired, blind, and deeply disappointed in me. Novella laughed, polite but real. Gwynn could work with that. She fed off the energy, growing bolder. More officers started gathering, curious about the commotion, drawn by the laughter. 4, then 6, then 8. She got them singing, an old drinking song, but she changed the lyrics. My father is a dog, a sad and sleepy hound. He judges all my efforts while he's snoring on the ground. The alley rang with voices and laughter. Spore slept through it all. Gwynn was flying. Her thoughts moved faster than she could track them, but for once, that felt right. This was what she was meant to do. This energy, this brilliance, it wasn't crazy, it was talent. She didn't notice when the singing stopped. Didn't notice every officer going rigid. Didn't notice the beautiful woman's face draining of color. Not until Spore whined, low and frightened, and woke for the first time. Gwynn turned. A man stood at the alley entrance, tall, well-built, wearing the decorated blue armor of high rank. His hands were clasped behind his back. His face wore a pleasant smile. His eyes were dead. Gwynn recognized him immediately. Everyone in Amora knew that face. Captain Asmus Filson. Well, his voice was warm and friendly. This is quite the gathering. The words hung in the air like a noose. Filson walked in slowly, looking around with what seemed like genuine curiosity. I heard singing several streets away. Thought perhaps there was a festival I'd missed? A Lars party already? His smile widened slightly. But no, just my fine officers taking a break with my wife and a child. Nothing wrong with that, of course. He crouched beside Spore, reaching out to gently pat the dog's head. Spore flinched, but didn't move. And who's this sweet old fellow? That's Spore, Sir Filson, Gwynn managed. Spore, Filson repeated, standing. What a good boy. He looked at Gwynn, still smiling. And you must be the entertainment. What's your name, love? Every instinct screamed at her to lie, but somehow, under that pleasant gaze, the truth spilled out. Gwynn, sir. Gwynn, he said, as if tasting the name. Well, Gwynn, it's a strange time for a child to be out alone. Where are your parents? Just around the corner, sir. I'll walk you. He held out his hand. It's not safe. Gwynn's mouth went dry. She took his hand, because refusing seemed more dangerous. As they walked toward the alley exit, Gwynn's mind raced. You're very kind, she said, forcing her voice into cheerful chatter and feigning ignorance. What's it like being so important? Filson chuckled. You're quite talkative, aren't you? My dad says I never stop. The words tumbled out faster now. He's probably why I talk so much, always trying to get his attention. Do you have children? They rounded a corner. Shadows deepened. Gwynn felt for the edge of her flicker. Just testing. In a manner of speaking, I have a daughter of sorts. Erica. Maybe you'd be friends. Gwynn had to get out. She smiled sweetly. What's she like? Filson blew a stream of air, thinking for a moment, before chuckling and shaking his head. She's a talker too. Different, though. Different? Well, for starters, she'd talk that cute old dog off your hands. Spore loves me, Gwynn protested, palms slick with sweat. Filson smiled softly, the expression lingering half a beat too long. I'm sure he does. She's tricky. Maybe a sweet girl like you would be good for... Gwynn vanished, yanking her hand away. Filson's hand closed on empty air. He looked down at where Gwynn had been, then turned in a slow circle. What in the... Gwynn pressed against the wall, invisible, not breathing. She had done it, activated her flicker fully on command. She was unstoppable. Are you still here, love? Filson called out. He searched the nearby area for a few moments before shaking his head. He turned and walked back toward the alley. Gwynn waited, counted to 100, then relaxed her flicker, visible again, staying in the shadows. From here, she could see the alley entrance, see Filson speaking with the beautiful woman, his wife. They left together, his hand on the small of her back. The moment they were gone, the officers exploded into motion, not scattering, gathering, talking in low, urgent voices, and then, somehow, impossibly, laughing. Gwynn crept closer, staying in the shadows. Can't believe she actually made Novella laugh, one was saying. Or the bit about retirement, another choked out. You really are an old bag. Wilson shook his head, grinning. Kids got guts. Would kill at a Lars party. But even his weathered face held a trace of amusement. Guts or stupidity. They were talking about her show, still replaying moments, and, despite everything, still smiling. Gwynn waited until they dispersed before slipping into the alley. Spore was exactly where she'd left him, still sleeping, oblivious to the entire drama. She gathered him into her arms. He was heavier than she expected, dead weight of an exhausted dog. Come on, boy, she whispered. Time to go home. The walk back took longer with Spore's weight. Dusk was creeping across the sky by the time she reached their wagon. She'd need to be quiet, to slip in before her family woke. But as she stood there, Spore warm in her arms, something shifted in her chest. She'd done it. She'd made 10 Fist Guard officers laugh, made them sing, made the captain's own wife smile, really smile, not the careful expression Gwynn had seen on her face when she first arrived. The plan was working. At this rate, her parents would have to want her. Gwynn smiled. Chapter 9. One performance became a dozen. By the 8th night, the courtyard crowd had swelled to 23, and her parents, absorbed in their second and third jobs, remained unnoticing. Gwynn tumbled over Spore's sleeping form mid-routine, pausing in a handstand above him. His braids, matted and unraveled, collected dirt with each performance. Her landing wasn't as clean as it should have been. Her hands trembled. She'd slept maybe 2 hours the previous night. Dad says I'm showing off again, she announced to the crowd, pressing her ear to Spore's side. She tried to ignore the rattling sound she heard within. He says real professionals don't need to prove anything. Well, now you tell me. The crowd laughed. Coins clinked into the hat she'd lifted from Gale. When she got home, she stashed the earnings in the hollow spot under the wagon, making a total of 26 chrono in just a few roosts. Enough for a nice meal for her whole family, if she chose. For now, though, she'd save it. Her family deserved something nice, but really the one who deserved the world was Spore. The way his breathing rattled, the way he slumped more than walked. Poor thing was probably uncomfortable. Old people got cold easily. Maybe it was the same for dogs. She could fix that. Freya was already asleep when Gwynn flickered into her room, grabbed her yarn and hook, and snuck past her sleeping parents to sit outside the wagon. She hadn't crocheted more than a single chain before. Aunt Miri taught her that much, but how hard could it be? She'd make a proper cape for Spore, get a restful sleep, and start over with a warmer dog in the morning. Moonlight bathed Gwynn as she made a single chain long enough for Spore, then 2, 5. She'd twist and tie them together into a ribboned cape, and Spore would be the warmest, most beautiful dog on the island. People would stop her just to admire the work and pet him, maybe even give her chrono just for the sheer experience of seeing something so... Gwynn Lowdotter! Her mother's voice cut through the morning air. When had it become morning? What are you doing out here? Gwynn looked at the tangle of chains in her lap, then at Spore, who was asleep, then at her mother, rubbing tiredness from her eyes. Super cape? Gwynn offered. Is that your sister's yarn? Yes, but she hadn't worked on her blanket in forever, and it came apart with just a little tug, so I don't think she was actually serious about it. Her mother blinked, rubbing the crook of her nose. She was making that for a friend's baby sister. Gwynn stood, letting the chains tumble to the floor. Well, it'll hardly be a baby anymore at the rate she was going. If she didn't want me to take it, she shouldn't have left it out. Gwynn. Her mother walked out, looked at the yarn, at Spore, then at Gwynn. She wrapped her in a tight hug. You know I love you. Okay, Gwynn said. If she loved her, she wouldn't have agreed to the evaluation. Let's take the roost together, her mother said. Just you and me. I can't. I've got to tie this for Spore. One roost, please? Her mother moved closer, knelt beside her, and reached out to tuck a loose braid behind Gwynn's ear. Anything you want to do. Gwynn's mind raced. Anything? Anything. Can we just take Spore somewhere nice first? He deserves a treat. Her mother's expression softened. Of course. The park overlooked the eastern lake shore, quiet at this hour, the morning mist still clinging to the water. Gwynn's mother had carried Spore most of the way. He'd tried to walk, but his limp was so pronounced she couldn't bear to watch. She settled him on a patch of sun-warmed moss. He circled once, slowly, and collapsed with a wheeze that rattled in his chest. There you go, boy. Just rest. Gwynn stroked his head, feeling his breathing gradually even out. You've worked so hard. You deserve this. Her mother sat beside them on the moss, watching. He's a good dog. Yeah. Gwynn's throat tightened. What do you love about him? Gwynn thought. He's my best friend. Gwynn. I want to go to the washer. The words came out in a rush. Her mother went very still. What? The washer and the scraps. I want to see a fight and eat their quadruple loaded clam fritters and... Absolutely not. You said anything. That's not... Gwynn, that place is dangerous. It's full of criminals and what are we? We steal things. You steal things. You said anything. Gwynn met her mother's eyes. You promised. Her mother stammered. Please? Gwynn said, softer. Something cracked in her mother's expression. One fight, she said finally. But we leave when I say we leave. Deal. The washer sat in the deepest part of the scraps, down 3 flights of stairs that reeked of sweat and old mead. They left Spore with Gale before leaving, and Gwynn tried not to feel terrible about Freya sobbing over her yarn. But there was no room for guilt in the washer. The door was thick wood, scarred and patched, and the moment it opened, the sound hit them. Roaring voices, the crack of fist on flesh, the groaning from pipes that ran along every wall and ceiling. Gwynn, I don't think... But Gwynn was already inside, eyes wide, drinking it in. The place had been a bathhouse once, maybe 20 migrations ago. Now the old steam room served as a fighting pit. A circular space, perhaps 15 paces across, ringed by benches and crates where spectators crowded. Pipes dripped constantly from the ceiling, creating a perpetual rain that made the stone floor slick. 2 men circled each other in the pit, both shirtless, both bleeding. The crowd roared as one landed a hit that sent the other sprawling. This is amazing, Gwynn breathed. Her mother's hand clamped on her shoulder, pulling her back. We're not staying. You promised. Anything I wanted. I didn't mean... Her mother's voice was tight, strained. This isn't appropriate. I'm not a baby. Gwynn twisted away, pushing into the crowd. Bodies pressed close, smelling of sweat and smoke and something sharper. Gin, maybe. Or pith. She slipped through the crowd and got closer to the pit. The fight ended with one man's nose fountaining blood. He raised his arms anyway, grinning through crimson teeth. The crowd loved it. Between the fighters, a stocky man took the floor, rolling his sleeves. The crowd shifted, not leaving, but restless. He pointed at a man in the front row. You! I've seen friendlier faces on a fish. Scattered, pitiful laughter followed. The man in the front row gave an obscene gesture that earned more laughs than the joke had. "Next challenger," someone shouted from the pit. 3 chrono to enter, 15 if you win. 3 chrono to enter. She had 4 in her pocket from the street performances. She could... No. Her mother appeared beside her, reading her expression. Absolutely not. I wasn't going to fight, Mom. I'm not stupid. Gwynn watched the stocky man land another weak joke to polite response. I want to do what he's doing, but better. You want to insult strangers in a fighting pit? I want to beat him. Gwynn turned to her. A competition. I outdo him, and they buy our meal. Before her mother could respond, Gwynn was moving, weaving through the crowd to where a grizzled man sat collecting entry fees. Excuse me, sir. I want to challenge your between fights man. Insult battle. The man looked down at her. How old are you? Old enough to do his routine better than him. He raised an eyebrow. You're just a kid and you want to... He looked to the comic on stage, then back to Gwynn. Actually, that could be a hit. I know. That's why I'm here. He paused, looking to Gwynn's mother. She's good? Her mother stammered, blinked, then smiled. She's unforgettable. He glanced past her at the crowd, calculating, then leaned forward. Here's how we'll run it. You both get a fact sheet about your opponent. You've got till the next fight ends to write your material. You get booed off, you leave. You're good. He shrugged. We'll see. Deal. He slid paper and pen across to her. Fill this out with things about yourself. He'll get whatever you write. No lies. Gwynn grinned and picked up the quill. Gwynn? Her mother's hand covered hers. What are you writing? The truth, Gwynn said. That I've never been in a relationship. I still live with my parents. Her mother studied her for a long moment, a slow smile spreading across her face. You aren't telling him your age. Gwynn smiled. Just that I'm technically unemployed, and I'm short. Her mom's laugh was genuine. It'll ruin him. The coordinator had created her opponent's sheet, and it was a treasure trove. Gwynn's mother read it off to her. Want to know something? Her mom asked, a smirk playing on her lips. He's got a tattoo on his shoulder that's supposed to look like a snake, but... She trailed off. Well, you can just draw attention to it. Gwynn's eyes went wide. You mean... Yes, her mother said, leaning in close. And he can't hold his alcohol at the tavern. Gets drunk off of just a couple glasses of wine. And it always comes back up. He orders wine at a tavern? He does. And when he drinks, he talks about a name. Lissa. His wife? His muse. She doesn't exist. He speaks to her to get inspiration for his poetry, but she's all in his head. Gwynn looked down at her fact sheet. She smiled and kept writing. Thanks, Mom. Go get him. The second fight ended with one man's teeth on the floor and the other man's arms in the air. The crowd roared. Blood made dark patterns on the wet stone. The grizzled man stepped into the pit and held up both hands until the noise dropped. A fine showing, he called out, his voice practiced and carrying. Give them both something to drink. The winner gets to choose what. More noise. He waited it out. Before our next bout, I have something different tonight. A challenge has been issued. He paused. Our man Breck, he gestured to the stocky comic, who raised a hand to scattered applause and one enthusiastic whistle, has been called out. First to lose the crowd loses the match, and buys the other dinner. Some nice low stakes. Breck looked down at his paper, then back up, a confident grin spreading across his face. The grizzled man continued. His challenger prepared her own fact sheet. I'll let her introduce herself. He stepped back. Gwynn walked out. Breck's eyes darted from his fact sheet to Gwynn, then back to the sheet. So, he started, unemployed, never been in a relationship, lives with her parents. He spread his hands. I've seen sadder, but I'm 11, Gwynn said. The crowd laughed before she said another word. He read that sheet, she continued, turning to face them, and thought, easy. He thought, this one's mine. She looked back at him. Breck, I still get taller when I sleep. You're balding and doing comedy in the scraps. He tried to recover, saying something about her height. She let him. Short, she agreed pleasantly. Yes. Also, I'm going to be 12 soon and have a whole new set of problems. He'll still have the same 3. We'll get to those. The crowd settled in. She let him take 2 more swings, both landing soft, the crowd politely acknowledging the effort. And then she turned and looked very deliberately at his shoulder. Can we talk about the tattoo? Several people in the front row were already grinning. I've been staring at it since I walked in here. She tilted her head, squinting. I genuinely cannot tell if it's a snake or... The laugh came before she even finished. She walked toward the steam pipe along the wall, grabbed it, and swung herself up in one easy motion, looking at the tattoo from above. No, still not a snake. Checked from up here, too. She dropped back down. The stocky man tried to interrupt. The crowd booed him quiet. Gwynn gave him a sympathetic look. He's taking it well, she told the crowd. The snake is the most embarrassing thing in this room, and there's men in here with busted noses and missing teeth. She turned back to him, almost gentle. What's its name? It's lived on your arm this long. It deserves a name. Something sad. Breck? When the noise died down, she changed topics without announcing it. He talks like he runs this pit. Her tone was conversational now, like she was explaining something obvious. Those 2 men just try to remove each other's faces, and after all of that, he orders wine. A ripple through the crowd. 2 glasses, she said, 1 per hand, and then it comes back up. That's not a drinking problem. That's a grape problem. You've been defeated by a fruit, Breck. She mimed lifting 2 glasses, one after the other, mimed the impact, crumbled slowly, magnificently, onto the wet floor, completely boneless. Lissa, she said, flat on her back. She stayed down for 3 full seconds. Call for help, Lissa. She stood, unhurried, and waited. Who's Lissa? She said, when she could be heard again. She looked at the crowd. They didn't know. She looked at him. He had gone very still, face bright red. She's who he talks to when he drinks. His muse. She paused, scanning the crowd. Her mother was smiling softly. Gwynn continued. Lissa doesn't exist. Silence for just a moment as the crowd caught up. She lives... Gwynn tapped her temple. Up here. He talks to her for his poetry. The man who works the fighting pit writes poems for a woman who isn't real. This is who's been insulting you. The laugh built slowly, which was better. Plenty of tough people write poetry, but he needed to invent someone to share it with because he was too nervous to show a real person. She looked at him directly. He's going to go home tonight and pour 2 glasses of wine, lose both of them on the floor, and tell Lissa about me. She smiled. Then, turning to go, she stopped. I hope she likes the story. The quadruple-loaded clam fritters arrived stacked on a dented plate, still hissing faintly, grease shining on their rough gold crusts. The smell hit first. Hot fat, sharp cheese, something briny underneath that made her mouth flood. Gwynn bit in and nearly made a sound. The outside shattered under her teeth, then gave way to molten cheese and soft clam, salty and rich and perfect in the way only forbidden food ever was. These are incredible, she said, around a mouthful, already reaching for another. She dragged one through the dark bilberry sauce, sweet at first, then a sting of heat that made her eyes widen. Her mother wasn't eating, just watching Gwynn with an expression that was hard to read. Can I get a drink? Gwynn asked hopefully. Just one. I won't tell Dad. Everyone else is... No. Mom, I said no, Gwynn. They ate in tense silence, the sounds of the next fight starting up behind them. Gwynn tried to enjoy the fritters, tried to hold on to the high of her performance, but something in her mother's face was pulling at her. When they finally left, Gwynn was stuffed. The sun was starting to set as they walked through the scraps toward home. That was perfect, Gwynn said, breaking the silence. She reached for her mother's hand. Thanks. Her mother stopped walking, her hand still in Gwynn's. Then she was crying. First gentle tears, then deep, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. She sank onto a nearby crate, face in her hands, and wept like something inside her had broken. "Mom?" Gwyn's high evaporated instantly. "Mom, what did I do?" Her mother couldn't answer. She cried while Gwyn stood frozen, not understanding. Her mother finally lifted her head, wiping at her face with shaking hands. "We need to get out of here. Come on, I have something for you." They walked in silence through the improving neighborhoods, the scraps giving way to merchant districts, then to the waterfront just outside the city. Her mother led them to a spot overlooking the lake, weathered stones arranged in a half circle, placed there generations ago for this exact purpose, a place to sit and watch the water. They sat. Her mother still hadn't spoken. Gwyn twisted her trembling hands in her lap. "Why did you really want to go there?" her mother asked finally. Her voice was raw from crying. "To the washer?" Gwyn shrugged, trying for casual. "The fritters were supposed to be—" "Gwyn." The weight in that single word made her stop, made her tell the truth. "I wanted to see if you'd let me." The words came out smaller than she intended. "If there were limits?" Her mother's breath caught. "What do you mean?" "Everyone keeps looking at me like—" Gwyn struggled to find the words. "Like they're waiting for me to break, like they're scared of what I might do, and I know you're worried, and I know Dad's worried, and—" She stopped herself. "And what?" "Nothing. It doesn't matter." Gwyn looked out at the water, at the sunset reflecting off its surface. "I just wanted to know if you meant it, when you said anything I wanted. If you'd really let me be myself, or if there's limits, things I'm not allowed to be." Her mother made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. "Oh, Feather, there are no limits to what you can be. That's what terrifies me." They sat with that for a moment. The water lapped at the shore around them. Somewhere in the city, musicians were playing, early practice for a Lars party. "I used to come here with my sister," her mother said. Gwyn turned to look at her, heart racing. "Aunt Mary? Do you remember when she took you for dessert? Bilberry tarts. I've heard you and Dad mention her, and the others were talking." Gwyn trailed off. "She's dead now." "She is." Her mother's voice was flat, empty. "It was an accident, I know. She loved hiking, but I—" Gwyn wasn't with her mother anymore. Mentally, she was back, trailing Miri as she walked to the island's edge. The tears, the smile. Then she was gone. The water stretched before them, darkening as the sun sank lower. "Was she like me?" Gwyn heard the words, but didn't feel herself speak them. "She had storms," her mother continued. "That's what our mother called them, storms. Some roosts Miri would wake up and the world was hers. Nothing could stop her. Nothing could slow her down. She'd stay up all night writing songs, learning dances, planning performances. She'd talk so fast I could barely follow. She'd have 10 ideas before breakfast and want to do them all at once." The tightness in Gwyn's chest grew worse. "She'd go roosts without sleeping. Our mother would find her at dawn, still working on whatever project had seized her. And she was good, Gwyn. She was so good at everything she tried, better than anyone had a right to be. She wrote songs that made grown men cry. She could juggle fire and make it look like the flames were dancing just for her." Her mother's voice cracked slightly. "But then it would pass." Gwyn hugged her knees to her chest. "Then what?" "She couldn't get out of bed. I get like that too, sometimes, but not like her. She couldn't eat, could barely speak. It was like watching someone drown on dry land. She'd lie there, staring at nothing, and I'd sit with her, and she'd say—" Her mother's voice broke completely. "Well, nothing, really." The water had grown dark, the sunset fading. "I saw it, Mom," Gwyn whispered, eyes stinging. "I thought she was being funny at first, but then she really jumped." Her mother was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible over the water. "What?" Gwyn couldn't breathe. The image filled her mind, walking so close to the edge, and then vanishing. Her mother met Gwyn's eyes. "What did you see, Feather?" Gwyn shook her head, tears spilling onto her cheeks. "Really?" Gwyn nodded. "Oh, Gwendolyn." Her mother pulled her into her arms, stroking her hair. "I'm so—" "It was an accident," Gwyn said, averting her gaze. "She snagged her foot on a rock and tripped." Her mother instantly relaxed at the lie. "It was? You said she jumped." "I lied. She—" Gwyn swallowed, but couldn't bring herself to repeat it. The moment stretched. Her mother shuddered, then reached into her pocket and pulled out something small, a locket on a thin chain. She held it out, and even in the fading light, Gwyn could see it was beautiful. Marble engraved with floral patterns. "This was Miri's," her mother said. "Our mother gave it to her. It has an inscription on it. Words she hoped would keep Miri safe." Gwyn took it. The marble was warm from her mother's pocket. On the front, engraved in tiny runes, "This storm will pass. The sun is near." She opened it carefully. Inside was a paper. Gwyn unfolded it to reveal a tiny painting of her family. "I had them paint Spore, too, snuggled up by your feet, and you're making all of us laugh with one of your silly faces." She pointed at the opposing side of the locket. "I left this blank so that when you're old and have your own family, you can put them in here, too, right by us." Her voice tightened. "Maybe it can give you something to look forward to, and help you remember that we love you, no matter what." She fastened the locket's twine around Gwyn's neck. The locket settled against Gwyn's chest, heavier than it looked. She looked out at the water, the same water that she drowned in last migration. The sunset had faded completely now, leaving only darkness and the distant lights of the city preparing for the festival. "We should go," Gwyn said. "I need to brush Spore." Her mother stood slowly, looking at Gwyn with an expression that held hope and heartbreak in equal measure. "You promise you'll be careful with it?" Gwyn touched the locket. They walked back toward the city together. Her aunt had been like her, brilliant, talented, special. 26 roosts until the evaluation. The locket was warm against her chest. She held it tight as they walked. She was nothing like Aunt Miri. Nothing at all. Chapter 10. The sun hurt. Gwyn's body was stone, every muscle protesting the strain of performances. The high from the washer had burned away overnight, leaving only exhaustion. Spore wheezed beside her, his breathing rattling. She'd forgotten to brush him last night. Another failure to add to the list. She should get up, should practice, should something. But the blankets were warm, and moving felt impossible. Then voices drifted through the thin wagon curtain wall. Her parents, speaking in low tones that meant serious conversation. "The lease payment is due in 3 roosts, her father was saying. "Hessen won't extend again. How much are we short?" Her mother's voice was tight. "Just 25 chrono." Silence. The kind that meant the problem had no easy solution. "We could sell the performing costumes," her mother offered. "The ones from... We need those for bookings, if we get bookings." Her father's laugh was bitter. "After what happened at Alara's..." Gwyn's mind went to the hollow where she kept her earnings. She counted in her head. With the marketplace performances, she had 26 chrono. More than enough. She could fix this. The thought gave her just enough energy to move. She pushed herself upright, the world tilting slightly. Spore lifted his head, looking vaguely toward her. "Come on, boy," she whispered. "We've got work to do." The walk to the North District felt longer than it should. Gwyn's legs trembled with each step, and Spore limped badly. His breathing labored. She should have let him rest. She should have gone alone. But she couldn't. Her father had mentioned Hessen once before, a gruff man who owned 3 wagons in the North District and rented them to performing families. His office was near the theater, above a tavern called The Stage. Gwyn's hand kept returning to her pocket, counting the coins by touch. 26 chrono. She imagined her father's face when she told him. The relief, the pride, maybe he'd call her Feather again, without that edge of worry in his voice. The marketplace lay between the south and north districts, a sprawling maze of stalls and vendors, bustling with preparations for the day. Gwynn usually loved the marketplace, the noise, the energy, the opportunities for mischief, but today it was too bright, too loud. She kept her head down, one hand on Spore's back to guide him through the crowds. That's when she saw it. The dress hung in a boutique window, catching the morning light like fire. Deep, red, feathery fabric that seemed to shimmer and shift, its subtle orange and yellow threads creating the illusion of flames dancing across the skirt. Matching coal-black shoes sat beneath it, simple but elegant. And beside them, a festival mask shaped like a flame, painted in the same red, orange, yellow gradient. Gwynn stopped walking. A festival mask. A Lars party was coming up. She'd nearly missed it. The dress was perfect. More than perfect. It was her. Her mind, foggy moments ago, sparked to life. Images flooded in too fast to process. Herself in that dress, performing at a Lars party. The crowd mesmerized. Her family watching with pride. She could do her fire-breathing routine and literally be the flame she breathed. She grabbed a passing vendor by the sleeve. "How many roosts until a Lars party?" The woman blinked at her. 7. "Looking to kiss a handsome boy soon?" The thought sickened Gwynn, but there was no time for that. 7 roosts. Gwynn released the woman's arm and stared back at the dress. 7 roosts until the festival of transformation. 7 roosts until the night where everything she was, the chaos, the wilderness, the flame, would be celebrated instead of feared. She had no outfit. More than that, her family had no outfits. They'd perform together, of course they would, her father on vocals, her siblings in their acts, and Gwynn as the centerpiece in that perfect flame dress. And they'd all match, coordinated and beautiful, proving they were a real family, a functional family, a family worth keeping intact. Her feet moved before she'd made a conscious decision, pulling Spore toward the boutique entrance. A bell chimed as she entered. The shop was small but elegant, clearly catering to wealthier clients preparing for the festival. A well-dressed woman looked up from arranging masks on a display. "Can I help you, littling?" Her tone was polite, but carried the subtle edge of someone assessing whether a customer could actually afford anything. "The flame dress in the window," Gwynn said, trying to sound confident, despite her exhaustion. "How much?" The woman's eyebrow raised slightly. "That's a custom piece. 20 chrono." Gwyn's stomach dropped. 20 chrono for just the dress. But she had 26 total, and her mind was already calculating, racing ahead to solutions she hadn't fully considered. "And the shoes and mask? Together with the dress? 25 chrono for the complete set." She'd have 1 chrono left. "I'll take it," she said. The woman smiled, immediately moving to package the items. "Wonderful choice, dear. You'll look stunning." Gwynn counted out the chrono with shaking hands. The woman took the coins and began carefully folding the dress in tissue paper. The woman handed her the wrapped package, along with a smaller bag containing the shoes and mask. Gwynn clutched them both, feeling their weight, and the 1 remaining chrono in her now light pocket. "Have a tangle time at a Lars party, dear," the woman said cheerfully. Gwynn barely heard her, guiding Spore back home, when the reality hit her like cold water. Her family needed 25 chrono and 3 roosts, and she had 1 now. 1. The package suddenly felt heavy in her arms. Her breathing quickened. The marketplace pressed in too close, too loud. Everything was too... Spore whined and pulled toward an alley entrance. "Not now, boy," she whispered, but he kept pulling, insistent. Fine. The alley was quieter anyway. She could think there. The narrow space between buildings was dim, almost empty, just some crates stacked against a wall, and a man, leaning against the far wall, his back to her. Dervin, the man from the other night in the alley. Gwynn's panic crystallized into something sharper. He got money from people. She'd seen it. He knew how to fix problems like this. She let herself dissolve. The rainbow mist came easier now when she was desperate, her body responding to need. Silent, invisible. She crept closer, the package making no sound in her transparent arms. She reached out to tap his shoulder. Dervin spun, his hand lashing out in a tight arc. Gwyn's transparency flickered as she jerked back, stumbling. His fist passed through empty air where her head had been a split second before. She became visible, gasping, package clutched to her chest. They stared at each other. Dervin's face went pale, his hand still raised, frozen in the follow-through. What the? He dropped his arm, stepped back. Don't do that. I'm sorry. You don't sneak up on people like that. I could have... He stopped himself, jaw clenching. He took a breath. When he spoke again, his voice was carefully controlled. What do you want, kid? Gwyn's mouth was dry. She just watched him nearly hit her. Not a slap, but a real strike, the kind meant to drop someone, and only luck had saved her. But she needed money. Her voice came out small. I need work. Dervin's expression hardened. No. Please, I just almost caved in your throat because you thought it'd be funny to sneak up on me. Does that answer your question about whether you're ready for this kind of work? But I dodged. The desperation made her voice crack. I can disappear. I'm good at it. And you're a kid. I'm useful, though. You get money from people, right? I could help you collect or deliver things or... Stop. He held up a hand, and something in his tone made her obey. He stared at her for a long moment, his expression cycling through anger, frustration, and something that looked almost like pain. How much do you need? 25 chrono. My family's going to lose the wagon if... And you were going to do what? Follow me around while I collect debts? Watch me work? Learn the trade? His voice was flat. Hard. You know what happens to kids who get in this life at your age? I don't care, she whispered. We need the money. You don't care. Dervin laughed, but there was no humor in it. Yeah, that's what she said too. Who? He ran a hand over his face, suddenly looking much older. Listen to me. You're not doing merc work. Not for me, not for anyone, not at your age. I don't care how useful your little disappearing trick is. But nothing. His voice was final. Then something shifted in his expression. He studied her, the expensive package, the exhausted face, the desperate eyes. You really need this. I messed up, Dervin. He ran a hand across his face. There's not a lot of ways to make quick money the honest way. It doesn't have to be honest but there are some. Do you have a talent? A trick you do real good? Gwynn scratched Spore's head. Spore and I are a performing duo, if that counts. At his age? Dervin waved a hand. Doesn't matter. Look, a young talent contest, part of a Lars party. You perform, you compete, the winner gets 1,500 chrono. Gwyn's breath caught. 1,500? Plus apprenticeship opportunities. Legitimate ones. Performance halls, artisan guilds. Mercenary work? Things that don't involve getting your throat cut in an alley. He crossed his arms. Preliminaries are tomorrow. Registration at the square by the theater today. Entry fee's just a chrono. Her hand went to her pocket, fingers finding the stone coin. Her last coin. You'd be good at it, Dervin mumbled, looking away. You've already got the energy for performing, and that disappearing trick. He gestured vaguely at the spot where she'd vanished. That'll make you unforgettable. Gwyn's mind raced. 1 chrono for a chance at 1,500. It was the only move she had left. Preliminaries are tomorrow? Tomorrow morning. Finals during the festival, 7 roosts from now. He started to turn away, then stopped and looked back at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. For what it's worth, I'm glad you asked me. Someone else might have said yes. Might have seen that trick of yours and not cared that you're a kid. Is that what happened to that girl you knew? No. He was already walking away. I ate her with some nice pepper sauce when she wouldn't stop bothering me about festivals. He stopped suddenly, looking at Gwynn. Who's the person your parents have to pay? They said Hessen? Dervin nodded. Get some sleep, kid. You look half dead. Then he was gone, leaving Gwynn alone in the alley with her expensive package, 1 chrono already spent in her mind, and a plan that might save everything. The registration table sat in the theater square, exactly where Dervin had said. A bored-looking official shuffled papers while a short line of young performers waited to sign up. Gwynn joined the line. Spore pressed against her leg. Her hand stayed in her pocket, clutching the coin. When her turn came, the official barely looked up. Name? Gwynn Lowdotter. Age? 11. Performance type? Gwynn faltered. What are the categories? He sighed, a sound that stretched longer than appropriate. Look, it's just for the sheet. Say anything you want. She could work with this. She'd make it part of the act. Right, seeking parental approval. The official's pen paused. He looked at her properly for the first time. You that girl from the Fiskard stories? You'll see. He shrugged, making a note. Entry fee is 1 chrono. Gwynn pulled out the coin, warm from being clutched so long, and placed it on the table. Her last chrono. Her last anything. The official eyed the money, stamped a paper, and handed it to her. Preliminaries tomorrow at midday. Be here early. Next! Gwynn stepped away, the registration paper clutched in one hand, the dress package in one arm, Spore's leash in the other. This paper would either save everything or prove she destroyed it all. She looked down at Spore. His milky eyes tracked vaguely toward her. We're gonna win, she whispered to him. We have to. Chapter 11. The preliminary venue was chaos. 3 performance spaces set up in the theater square, acts rotating every 10 minutes, crowds flowing between them like water. Gwynn clutched her registration paper. Spore's leash wrapped twice around her wrist to keep him close. She'd spent the morning practicing in her room, running through the routine until her voice went hoarse. Her parents hardly minded. Hessen had spontaneously given them 20 extra roosts to make their payment. The dress fit perfectly. She was ready. Then she saw him. A boy, maybe 13, standing in the holding area with a massive hound. The dog was younger than Spore, but just as lazy-looking, already sprawled on the cobblestones. The boy held a piece of paper, lips moving as he rehearsed. And my father says I'm going to show off again, but... Gwynn's blood went cold. She pushed closer, Spore limping behind her, got near enough to hear the boy's full rehearsal. Her routine, word for word, beat for beat. Hey, she said, voice tight. Where'd you learn that? The boy looked up, startled. What? That bit. The sleeping dog bit. Where'd you get it? He shrugged, defensive. Around. People talk about this kid who does it in the marketplace. Thought I'd try my version. Your version? Yeah, I mean, it's a public bit, right? Anyone can do the sleeping dog thing. Gwynn's hands started to shimmer at the edges. She forced them solid. When do you go on? He checked his paper. I'm in the 10th slot. One before her. She was going to watch this idiot butcher her routine, and then the judges were going to think she was copying him. The boy was called to stage. Gwynn watched from the wings, her chest tight. He was terrible. The timing was off, the dog kept waking up, and he forgot half the jokes. But the concept was there. The structure was there. Enough to make Gwynn's turn look derivative. She needed something else, something to differentiate. Something... Her eyes landed on a musician waiting in the performer's area. Young woman, maybe 20, with a guitar resting against her knee while she reviewed her own notes. Gwynn moved before she'd fully decided. Can I borrow that? She was already lifting the guitar. I'll give it right back. Wait, what? But Gwynn was already moving toward the stage, instrument in hand, Spore limping beside her. They called her name. No time to think. Only time to do. The stage was barely a stage, a raised platform in the square, maybe 15 paces across. The afternoon sun beat down on it. 40 or 50 people clustered around, a mix of other contestants, random passers-by, and 3 official-looking judges with clipboards. Gwynn set Spore down center stage. He circled once, twice, then collapsed with a wheeze. She strapped the guitar across her chest, fingers finding the strings. She'd played guitar before, but never like Dad did. Good afternoon! Her voice carried across the square. My name is Gwynn, and this, she gestured to Spore, is my father. A few scattered laughs. Time to give them a good show. She struck a chord, wrong note, adjusted, found it, and launched in. Her mind was 3 paces ahead, forming lyrics. I had another act prepared for you today, but just as fate would have it, the whole act slipped away. That's a shame, and it really is too bad. I was gonna tell you all about my canine dad. The crowd was watching now. She played a quick riff, gaining confidence. What do you think, Dad? She leaned down like she was listening to his snores, then straightened with mock revelation. If I play this song right, he says I'll steal the show. If I play it well enough, his love is gonna grow. That sounds great, but I'm down to 1 chrono. Winning this is how I'm even paying for these clothes. She gestured to her flame dress, let it shimmer in the light. Laughter rippled through the crowd. The rest of the improvised song carried on with a similar energy. The crowd was eating it up. Gwynn plucked a sour note before wiggling the string as she resolved it into a key-changing chord. What else can I do to convince you, Dad? Maybe you all need my qualifications. She played a leading note and sang. I can cook porridge, stitch, and sew, retune a sour note, sing you to sleep on a hill. I can flip my braids, bake a cake, early to rise not late, or even eat till I'm full. I survived drowning, stopped frowning, made all the crowds wowing, breathed fire, barely got caught. I can flip through air, disappear, sneak, and then reappear, but I can't seem to impress my pops. She let the final chord ring out, then shifted to muted strumming. Okay, Dad, let's hear from you. She looked down at Spore. All you gotta do to choose me is make some noise. She strummed a chord. Spore didn't move. What would you do if you had to choose between me and a room full of chrono? Silence. She played a sad note. That's fine. Doesn't even hurt. Her fingers moved across the strings. But what would you do if you had to hold me for a roost and in exchange eternal youth? The silence stretched longer this time. Okay, that one stung. She strummed again, the notes minor and aching. But what would you pick, an actual brick or me, your daughter, just once? Spore's breathing was the only response. That's when she saw him. Gale, standing at the back of the crowd, half hidden behind a merchant's stall. His face was frozen in an expression she couldn't quite read. Her fingers stumbled on the strings. Play it off. What if I threw in a treat? She pulled a strip of dried fish from her pocket and tossed it in front of Spore. It landed inches from his nose. He didn't even twitch. Gwynn stared at the treat, then up at the audience, ignoring Gale and the crowd. See, in my notes, he was supposed to take that one. The crowd burst into laughter. The judges were conferring, nodding, but Gwynn barely heard it. She was watching Gale's face as understanding rippled across it. She bowed quickly, scooped up Spore, and fled the stage. The verdict could wait. She didn't stop, just kept moving, pushing through the crowd, trying to put distance between herself and that look on Gale's face. A hand caught her arm. Gwynaroo. Gale's voice was soft. We need to talk. Gwynn tried to pull away, but Gale's grip was firm. Not rough, just steady. Let go, she said. We need to talk. His voice was quiet enough that the dispersing crowd couldn't hear. Now. The flicker came automatically, her skin already shimmering at the edges, but Gale's face stopped her, not angry, just worried in a way that made her chest tight. Hey, before you vanish on me, can we just breathe for half a second? Gwynn met his eyes, matching his slowed breaths, but something bubbled within. Please, the word came out small, broken. Please don't tell Dad. I can fix this. Please, Hey, no, I'm not talking to Dad, okay? I'm talking to you, right here. I'm not taking anything from you. I just need you to stay with me for a second. He lowered himself to a crouch, looking up at Gwynn. You are... Gwynn's shoulders shook as her hands faded from view. You're gonna tell him, please? Him and Mom, they can't... I don't want to go. I don't even know what you think they'd do, but you're here with me. Nothing is happening right now. He took her hand and pulled her into a narrow alley between a bakery and cobbler shop. Spore limping behind and curling up upon arrival, snoring. I don't want to go, Gale. The thoughts were tumbling out as though something had broken. I don't want to go. I want to be part of the family. Please don't tell them. The only thing I'm telling them is how you definitely have been holding out on us in the shows. That song was good. We just need to get you an instrument, maybe a few hundred voice lessons so you can sound as good as me, but then... He trailed off. Gwynn shook with sobs. Gale's grin faltered, and he pulled Gwynn tight against him, his warmth grounding. Shh, shh, it's... He paused, jaw working. What happened, Gwynn? She couldn't respond. Instead, she stood in his embrace, flickering invisibility as he hummed. After a few moments, she swiped at her face and pulled away. Her question came out broken. Was it really good? Good? You had them, Gwynny. They were yours. He motioned wide with a hand. I can see it now. You pretending that dog is your dad in front of the alm speaker himself. Did you improvise that? Gwynn nodded, some energy returning to her limbs. It was funny. I struggle with rhymes when I improvise, but you slanted them in a way I'd forgotten was even an option. I laughed, I gasped, I cheered. You really got something there. Her gaze fell on Spore, his chest rising and falling slowly. He's a good dog, Gale. People want him. I don't think he knows that enough. Sometimes thinks the family doesn't actually want him. Of course we don't want him. Gale laughed, putting a hand on Spore. He's old. He smells like alley water. He wheezes and sleeps all day. Gwynn's face crumpled, but Gale continued. But you want him, and we want you, so we get to want Spore too. She nodded, looking at Spore as her breathing steadied. Look, Gwynn, you can perform if you want. I won't tell Mom and Dad. That's not... He stopped, searching for the right words. It's not why you what? He exhaled, jaw working. He started and stopped several times before pushing through. Did you know my first job was at the animal shelter? I cleaned the pens. Explains the smell, Gwynn said quietly, fighting a smile. Hey, I'm serious. I worked with lots of animals. There was this one dog, big ol' mutt. We called him Wig because actually they never did tell me why, but I loved that dog. He met Gwynn's eyes, speaking slowly. He was an old dog, Gwynn. So? So old dogs, they... Look, it's... Have you ever met Wig? No? Do you know what happened to him? Gwynn stilled, looking at Spore as something sank in her chest. He's not that old, Gale. Before I stopped seeing Wig, he breathed a lot like Spore, and he especially didn't react to treats I gave him. Wouldn't even sniff them. Gwynn pushed Gale back. Spore's just trained. When was the last time he reacted to food? What? Gale crouched beside Spore, his voice gentle. You can perform, Gwynn, but dogs like this need rest. Proper rest. Not loud stages. Gwynn opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. Her mind raced backward through the performances. The marketplace, the officers in the alley, Spore sleeping through everything, even when she'd offered treats, even when... Her voice came out weak. He's supposed to stay. That's the whole bit. Gwynny. Gale stood, and something in his expression made her want to run. Look at him. Really look. She didn't want to. Looking meant seeing, and seeing meant... But she looked. Spore lay against the wall, sides heaving with each breath. His fur was matted despite her attempts to brush it, and she could see his ribs through his coat. His milky white eyes were half closed, and drool pooled on the cobblestones beneath his muzzle. One of his back legs trembled constantly. She'd noticed that before, but told herself it was just old tiredness. The braids she'd woven into his fur were half undone, dirty, tangled, and neglected, despite her promises to fix them. How many times had she meant to rebraid them? She couldn't remember. Can I do the act with you instead? Gale's voice was soft, but unyielding. This isn't what he needs. The alley tilted. Gwynn dropped to her knees beside Spore, her hands hovering over his matted fur. I didn't mean... Her voice came out fragile. I was just trying to... Spore's tail gave a weak thump against the ground. Just once. Like he was trying to comfort her, even now. Something inside Gwynn collapsed completely. She pulled Spore into her arms, terrified of hurting him more, and buried her face in his filthy fur. He smelled terrible. Her body shook with sobs, and Spore just lay there in her arms, breathing his rattling breaths, existing despite her. "I'm sorry," she whispered into his fur. "I'm so sorry. I thought—" But what had she thought? That she could use a sick dog to win money? That performing was more important than his comfort? That her need to prove herself mattered more than his life? The energy that had carried her through the last few performances drained away, leaving only hollow exhaustion. Her hands went slack. The world felt distant and gray and wrong. Gale crouched beside her, one hand on her shoulder. "Hey, it's okay. We'll get him home, get him comfortable." "I don't want to go away." Her voice was flat. "I don't know what that means, Gwynn." Silence stretched between them. Somewhere in the square, another performer was starting their routine. Laughter drifted down the alley, bright and false. "Can you walk?" Gale asked finally. Gwynn nodded, though she wasn't sure it was true. "I'll carry Spore. Come on." Getting home was a blur. Gale supported her with one arm, cradling Spore with the other, and even stopped by the judges' table to verify Gwynn's admittance to the finals. They loved her. People stared, a boy carrying a giant dog while a girl in a flame dress stumbled beside him, but Gwynn barely noticed. Everything felt underwater, muffled and slow. The wagon appeared. The door opened. Her mother's face, shocked and concerned. "What happened, Gale?" "What?" "The dog needs help." Gale pushed past her, carrying Spore inside. "And Gwynn's not feeling well." Her father appeared, taking in the scene. His eyes went to Gwynn's dress, the expensive, beautiful, stupid dress, and something flickered across his face. But all he said was, "Let's get them settled." The family moved. Astrid fetched water and clean blankets. Freya cleared the space in the main area, pushing furniture aside. Their mother coaxed Spore to drink, while their father checked him over with gentle hands. Gwynn stood frozen in the doorway, watching them care for the dog she'd neglected. "Gwendolyn." Her father's voice was soft. "Come sit." She shook her head. "Feather, please." The nickname broke something. She crossed to him on numb legs and let him guide her to the floor beside Spore. Her mother was already there, one hand stroking the dog's head. "Where did you get this dress?" her mother asked quietly. Gwynn's throat closed. She couldn't answer, couldn't explain about the boutique, the coins, the stupid impulsive choice that had started everything. "I stole it for her." Gale's voice came from behind them. "I stole it. I thought it might make her feel better, help her feel special. I shouldn't have." Everyone looked to him. Gwynn's head snapped up, shocked out of her shutdown for a moment. Gale met her eyes. "I can return it if we need to." "Gale." Their father's voice held a mixture of exasperation and tenderness. "We don't need more stealing." "I know. I'm sorry." "Don't apologize for trying to help your sister." Their mother's hand moved from Spore to Gwynn's hair, beginning to stroke it gently. "We'll give it back." Gale nodded, face red. He wouldn't look at Gwynn. The lie hung in the air between them. Gwynn wanted to correct it, but her voice wouldn't work. Everything was too heavy. Too much. "Let's get you out of this dress," her mother said, still gentle. "And into bed. You need rest, and—" "Please don't get rid of me, Mom," Gwynn whispered. Her mom froze, shooting a look at Gwynn's father. "What do you mean?" "No one's getting rid of anyone," Astrid said. "Mom is. So is Dad." Gwynn's voice was barely audible, but it was all she could manage. "Giving me to the church." Her siblings looked to her parents, as though begging them to contradict it. They didn't. Instead, her father got to a knee. "I'm a loud talker, I guess." Gwynn said nothing. Nobody did. He sighed, turning to the family. "You know Gwendolyn has some struggles the rest of us don't. We can't keep her safe, but the church has a program that can help her, so we're having her talk to some helpers from the church to see if you can give her away? Let her live with them?" Gale's voice was lethal. "Are you serious?" Her father's jaw trembled. "It's not giving her away. It's keeping her alive." "That's our job, Dad." Gale yelled this time, hands trembling. We keep her alive. We can't just get rid of her, Freya finished. Even if she ruined my blanket. I'm sorry. I know I said I wanted her gone, but I didn't mean... This has nothing to do with the blanket. The evaluation is the evening of a Lars party. Gwyn's mother ignored the remarks. We should know that same night if... What? Gwyn asked, something squeezing in her chest. No, I had more time. Her parents exchanged a long look before her dad spoke slowly. We thought we'd have to wait longer, but seeing how tired you've been, I asked if we could move it up. Her father's words rang in the room. The evening of a Lars party. 6 roosts. Gwyn's hands started to shimmer, her body trying to disappear, trying to stop existing. No. She forced herself solid, forced herself to speak. Come to the contest, please? Everyone turned to look at her. What? Her mother's hand stilled in Gwyn's hair. The Young Talent Contest. Finals are during a Lars party, during the day, before the evaluation. The words tumbled out faster. If you could just see me, really see me perform, maybe you'd understand. Maybe you'd see I'm not just... broken? Her father's expression was pained. Feather, that's not... I'm good, Dad. I'm really good. Gale saw me today. Ask him. She looked around, but Gale was gone. The judges, the crowd, they all laughed. They sang along. Gwyn, we know you're talented, her mother said gently. That's not... No, listen. I wasn't crazy this time. Please, I'm getting better. Please come watch. Please. Tears streamed down her face. And if you still think I need to go to the church after that, I'll... Her voice caught. I'll go. I'll do the evaluation. I won't fight it. Just let me show you first. Her parents exchanged a long look. The room was silent. Her father crouched beside her again. You promise you'll go to the evaluation no matter what? I promise. Another long look between her parents. Then her mother spoke, voice thick. Of course we'll come. All of us, Freya added firmly. Thank you, Gwyn whispered. Thank you. I'll make you proud. I'll prove... You don't have to prove anything, her father said, but his voice was tight with something Gwyn couldn't name. That's not what this is, Gwendolyn. We love you. He pulled her into an embrace. Her mother joined. Then Astrid. Then Freya. They held her there on the floor, beside Spore, and Gwyn let herself be held. 6 roosts. She wasn't giving up. Chapter 12. Morning came. Gwyn couldn't move. Night fell. Chapter 13. Gwyn's body was sand. Even the thought of sitting up made exhaustion crash over her in waves. Spore's breathing filled the small room. 5 roosts until a Lars party. 5 roosts until they took her away. The door opened. Gwyn didn't turn her head. Couldn't, or simply lacked the energy to care. Gwynaroo. Gale's voice came, soft but determined. You can't just sleep through your training. We're here to help. Footsteps, more than just Gale. Astrid appeared at the edge of her vision, then Freya. Her siblings crowded into her small room, as if their sheer proximity could force life back into her. What do you need? Gale crouched beside the bed, his face level with hers. For the performance, what do you need us to do? Gwyn's throat was dry. Speaking felt impossible, but she forced the word out. Don't know. Gwyn. Solo. The word came out cracked. Just me. Alone. Astrid exchanged a look with Freya. You can't perform alone. You can barely sit up. Gwyn's hand found Spore's fur, holding on like an anchor. We could do a group number, Freya offered. Family act. No. Stronger this time, silencing them all. Solo. The silence stretched, then Gale nodded. Okay, solo. But what can we do? There has to be something. Gwyn closed her eyes and tried to think through the fog. Need a song. We can help with that, Astrid said quickly. I'm good with lyrics, and Freya can... No. Gwyn's fingers tightened in Spore's fur. Just the melody. Her sisters looked at each other, hurt flickering across their faces, before they hit it. Fine, Freya said, voice tight. If that's what you want. It is. Gale put his hand over hers where it rested on Spore. Okay. The roosts blurred together. Gwyn spent hours staring at a blank page, pen trembling in her hand. The words were somewhere within her, but coaxing them from her heart to the paper felt like dragging stones uphill. Felt you watching as I danced. Her hand cramped. She dropped the pen, picked it up, and kept going. Bragging to all your friends. Gale came and went, bringing food she barely touched, and water she only sipped when he insisted. He'd sit on the floor beside her bed, humming melodies while she worked, never asking to see the words, never pushing. Try this, he'd say, and hum a progression. Gwyn would shake her head or nod, or sometimes, when she could find the energy, hum something back. They built the melody in pieces, fragments, moments stolen between the crushing weight of exhaustion. It's sad, Gale said once, after they'd worked out the chorus. What's it about? He gestured vaguely, unable to finish the question. Can I see the lyrics? Gwyn didn't answer, just kept writing. On the third roost, Astrid tried again. Let me help with the staging, please. I won't touch the lyrics, I just want to help you move. Help you... No staging. Gwyn's voice was flat, dead. Just standing, just singing. You can't just stand there for an entire performance. You need blocking, you need to move, or you're not going to win. I know. Astrid's jaw tightened. You're being stubborn. You're sabotaging yourself because you're too proud to accept help. Maybe she was right. Gwyn didn't have the energy to argue. She turned back to her paper, pen moving slowly across the page. Said the storms would drag me down. Astrid left. The door closed harder than necessary. Spore got worse. His breathing became more labored, the wheezing more pronounced. He barely lifted his head when Gwyn brought water, just lapped at it weakly before collapsing back to sleep. She spent what little energy she had caring for him, bringing water, checking his breathing, lying beside him with her arm draped over his matted fur, whispering apologies he couldn't hear. I'm sorry, she said into his fur on the fourth roost. Spore's tail gave a weak thump against the floor. You're a good dog, Gwyn whispered. The best dog. On the next roost, Freya came in with papers. I made a schedule, she said, sitting uninvited on the edge of Gwyn's bed. For tomorrow, when we need to leave, when you need to be ready, when... Freya. You were assigned the third slot, but I talked to the organizers and got you moved to the last. Final performer. Everyone remembers the finale. It's better positioning, strategically. Freya, stop. Freya stopped, looked at Gwyn, and something in her face crumpled. I just want to help, she said quietly. I want to do something. You won't let any of us do anything, and tomorrow you're going to... And we can't... She wiped at her eyes angrily. We're your family. We're supposed to help. Gwyn's throat tightened. Okay. It doesn't feel okay. I know. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Freya stood, straightening her papers with unnecessary force. Fine, but you're eating breakfast tomorrow, even if I have to force feed you. And you're drinking water. Gwyn paused. Why haven't Mom and Dad seen me since our fight? Freya swallowed. They've been the ones making you meals. But why haven't they seen me? I don't know, Freya whispered. Then she left. The papers remained on the nightstand, careful, organized, desperately helpful. The night before Lars' party, Gwyn finished the song. The last words came slowly, painfully, but they came. She wrote them down with shaking hands, then read through the whole thing once, twice, 3 times. Gale came in as the sun was setting, dancing shadows across the floor. He had the family's best guitar, the one with the crack along the front that gave it a warmer tone. Ready to put it together? He asked. Gwyn nodded, pushing herself upright with effort. Spore lay beside the bed, breathing his rattling breaths. She'd given him water an hour ago. He'd barely drunk any. "Just the melody," she said. "No words yet." "I know." They worked through it twice, Gwynn humming while Gale picked out the notes. He made small adjustments, found places where the melody could lift or fall, gave her space to breathe between the phrases. "It's good," he said when they finished the second run-through. "Really good, Gwynny. You're going to—" He trailed off. Gwynn looked down at her paper. "Gale," she said quietly, if this doesn't work, if they still take me away, will you—" Her voice cracked. "Will you take care of Spore?" Gale set the guitar down carefully. "Gwynn, please, I need to know that someone will take care of him." "We're not going to let them take you." "But if they do—" "We won't." His voice was fierce, certain. "You're going to get up on that stage tomorrow, and you're going to show them exactly who you are. And they're going to see that you're brilliant and talented, and yes, sometimes you're a lot, but you're ours, and we don't give away our family." Tears stung Gwynn's eyes. She blinked them back. "Where have they been? Mom and Dad?" Freya didn't know. Gale looked at her for a long moment. They thought you wouldn't want to see them, but they're thinking of you." Then he nodded. "I promise, though, about Spore. But you're going to be the one taking care of him, because you're not going anywhere." Gwynn wanted to believe him. She pulled the paper closer, protecting the words written there. "Thank you. Don't mention it." He stood, heading for the door. Paused. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be—" He didn't finish. Chapter 14. The festival roared around them, music and laughter and the smell of fried food mixing with rainbow mist. Gwynn stood at the edge of the performance area, Gale beside her, lyric sheet trembling in her hand. Through the crowd, she could see the stage. Small, simple, just a raised platform with festival lights strung above it. Several acts had already performed. A juggler, a dancer, a comedian who made everyone laugh. Now, it was her turn. "Gwynn Lowdotter," the announcer's voice carried over the noise. "Performing Seeking Parental Approval." A few laughs rippled through the crowd. Gwyn's hands started to shimmer. "Hey," Gale put his hand on her shoulder. "I love you, Gwynaroo." She nodded. Words wouldn't come. Then she was walking. One foot fell in front of the other. The crowd parting. The stage getting closer. She climbed the steps and turned to face the audience. Hundreds of people, masks and costumes and expectations. The contest judges in their section with clipboards. Random festival goers who'd stopped to watch. Street performers who had just finished their turns. And there, front section, was her family. Her mother's hands clasped tight, Astrid and Freya holding each other. Gale had moved to stand with them, his face tight with worry. Her father stood very still, looking at her with an expression she couldn't read. In the back, she caught sight of Dervin, arms crossed, face neutral. But he'd come. And opposite him, Thompson and Wilson, the officers from the alley, stood with a few other guards. Gwynn opened her mouth to speak. Her throat closed. The silence stretched. Someone in the crowd shifted. Another coughed. She tried again. The words came out barely above a whisper, but in the sudden quiet, they carried. "I wrote a song about my father." She looked down at the paper in her shaking hands. The lyrics blurred. She couldn't read them anymore, but she didn't need to. They were burned into her. She opened her mouth and sang. "Felt you watching as I danced, Father, bragging to all your friends. I twirled to make you proud, but I'm scared I never did, Father." Her voice cracked on the word father. She pushed through it. In the audience, her father's face had gone pale. "Said the storms would drag me down, Father, but never helped me float. I breathed my last into your chest, but you were colder still, Father." Her hands were starting to fade at the edges. She couldn't stop it. Grease paint on the floors and flags all tied together. All I ever knew to want was to be your girl. I never aimed for bad, I never aimed for crazy, but the truth is in your eyes, Father. It's all I ever was. Her father's hands came up to his face. His shoulders shook. So when my storms grew fierce, Father, I thought you'd weather me. Saw my whole world in your eyes, but what could you have seen? Gwyn's transparency spread up her arms. She was flickering now, visible, then not, solid, then mist, no control left. But she kept singing. Grease paint on the floors and flags all tied together. All I ever knew to want was to make you proud. Don't cry when I laugh, don't ever call me crazy. Her father was crying now, his wife's arms around him, but his eyes locked on Gwyn. So tell me to my face, Father, why wasn't I enough? The final verse came out barely above a whisper, but the crowd had gone completely still. Every word carried across the festival square, like a stone dropping into deep water. Why did you let me go, Father? What else could I do? Loving you was the only thing I ever really knew. I was your little girl, Father, your feather. The last note died. Gwyn stood there, half invisible, shaking, looking at her father, who couldn't look back at her anymore. His face was in his hands, body bent forward like he'd been struck. The silence was absolute. No one moved. No one spoke. The entire festival seemed to have stopped breathing. Gwyn ran. Her feet carried her through the North District, past the wagons in the marketplace, outside the city gates, toward water, toward the place where everything had broken before. The lake. Her lungs burned, her legs shook, but she couldn't stop, couldn't think. She moved until the ground ran out, standing at the rocky shore, staring at the dark water that reflected the festival lights and the island's rainbow mist. This was where she'd drowned, where the ranger had pulled her out and broken her ribs to bring her back, where her father had held her after, shaking and cold and terrified. Gwyn sank to the ground. The rocks were cold and sharp, but she barely felt them. She pulled her knees to her chest and stared at the water, slowly becoming visible again, too exhausted to maintain the transparency, too empty to care. The festival sounds drifted across the distance. Music, laughter, life continuing like her world hadn't just ended. She didn't know how long she sat there. Minutes? Hours? Time felt fuzzy. Footsteps on the rocks behind her. She didn't turn. She knew those footsteps. Her father sat down beside her, not touching, not speaking, just there. They stared at the water together. The silence stretched. Gwyn waited for him to say something, demand she come back, ask what she was thinking, anything. But he just sat there, and his breathing was ragged, like he'd been running or crying or both. Finally, he spoke. His voice came out rough. I thought you'd be here. Gwyn didn't respond. Your mother thought you'd go to Spore. Gail thought maybe to that Dervin guy. But I knew. He paused. They pulled you from the competition, Feather. You had to stay if... He trailed off, looking at Gwyn and trying again. I heard you. I heard all of it. The words hung between them. Gwyn's throat tightened, but she didn't speak. I don't... He stopped, blinking. I don't know what to say. I keep trying to find the right words and they won't come, and His voice cracked. I'm so sorry, Feather. For all of it. Gwyn finally looked at him. His face was blotchy and red. His hands shook where they rested on his knee. He looked smaller than she remembered. Older. Broken. You asked why you weren't enough, he said, staring at the water like he couldn't meet her eyes. And I don't... That's not... He made a frustrated sound. You were always enough. You are enough. That's not why... He trailed off. Gwynn waited. When you drowned, he said finally. When that ranger pulled you out and you weren't breathing, I thought I'd lost you. I thought... He put his head in his hands. And then you woke up and you were fine and you just wanted to go again, to break the record like you hadn't just died. His shoulders shook. I don't know how to keep you safe from yourself. I watch you fly so high, and I'm terrified you're going to fall. And when you crash, I don't know how to pull you out. I don't know how to be what you need. And I'm so scared all the time that one day you'll... He pulled on his hair, letting his head sag. Gwynn looked back at the water, at the place where she'd gone under. I wasn't trying to die. I know. I just wanted to see if I could do it. I know. His voice broke completely. They sat with that. The water lapped at the rocks below them. Somewhere in the city, someone was singing. You punched a mirror because of me. You yelled at me. You called me crazy. Gwynn said. Her voice came out flat. Her father flinched like she'd struck him. I shouldn't have, but you think it. The night stretched between them. I think, he struggled with the words, I think your mind works differently than mine, than most people's, and I don't understand it, and that terrifies me, because if I don't understand it, I can't protect you from it. I don't need protecting from my own mind. Don't you? He finally looked at her. His eyes were desperate. Gwynn, you died in this lake. You breathed fire without training. You ran into the scraps in the middle of the night. He took a shaking breath. How am I supposed to watch that and not be terrified? Gwynn's hands started to fade again. She watched them go transparent with distant interest. I don't know how to be different, she whispered. I don't want you to be different. His voice was fierce now. I just want you here. But you're sending me away. To people who might be able to help. You're sending me away. He made a broken sound and reached for her, but stopped himself. His hand hovered in the air between them, shaking. I don't know how to fix this. Gwynn looked at his hand, at the way it trembled, at the desperation in every line of his body. But she was so tired, and he was so scared. His hand dropped. They sat in silence for a long moment. The water was very dark now. The festival lights seemed far away. Will you come back? Her father asked finally. His voice was careful, the raw emotion retreating behind something more manageable. The evaluator is waiting. She needs to speak with us. With you. Gwynn felt something inside her go cold. If you just come talk with her, he continued, we can figure this out. She might be able to help. We want what's best for you. He paused. Will you just come with me? Please? She stared at the water. Okay, she said. The word came out hollow. Okay, I'll come. Her father sagged with relief. He rested his hand on her shoulder. Thank you. Thank you, Feather. We're going to figure this out. She stood. Her legs shook, but held. Her father stood too, trying to pull her into a hug, but she stayed stiff in his arms. After a moment, he let go. They walked back toward the city. Her father kept his hand on her shoulder. It'll be okay. You'll see, she's very understanding, and no matter what she says, you're our daughter. My Feather. Nothing changes that. Behind them, the lake waited. Chapter 15. They walked back in silence. Gwynn's father kept his hand on her shoulder, but the touch felt wrong, like he was holding her down instead of holding her up. The festival was still going. Music drifted through the streets, laughter echoing off buildings. People in masks dancing, drinking, celebrating transformation. Gwynn felt like a ghost moving through it all, until finally they arrived at an ordinary-looking building. It sat at the edge of the festival grounds, between a tailor and a locksmith. The place smelled of old wood and incense. They entered. Someone had arranged 2 chairs facing each other in the center of the room, with a third off to the side. Outside, the streets pulsed with torchlight and music, but the windows stayed dark. A desk against the wall held stacked papers, ink, and a clay mug someone had forgotten to clear. A copy of The Dragon and the Bird fairy tale was tucked into the desk's corner, bookmarked. Gwynn sat in the nearest chair with her knees pulled to her chest, arms wrapped tight around her shins. The flame dress was wrinkled now, damp at the hem from running. Her braids hung loose, where the wind and sweat had pulled them free. Her father stood behind her, rubbing her shoulders in slow circles the way he did when she was small and couldn't sleep. His hands were warm, but unsteady as they tremored. The door opened. Evening air rushed in, carrying fried dough and distant drums, and a woman stepped through. Gwynn knew her immediately. The woman from the alley, the one the officers had gone rigid for, the one Gwynn had made laugh with the bit about Spore being her father. Captain Filson's wife. She looked different now. No fine dress, no careful public composure. Simple clothes, hair pulled back, moving with the ease of someone who'd walked into rooms like this 100 times and never once dreaded it. "Hi, Gwynn. I'm Novella." Her voice was warm. "Do you remember me?" Gwynn looked up, saw her face, and looked back down at her knees. "I guess." "Good, because I remember you. You held those crowds captive." Novella's gaze shifted past Gwynn to her father. "That's not easy. Has she always done that?" Her father nodded, his thumb still pressing circles into Gwynn's shoulders. "Her being good enough was never the problem. Maybe she could have won the competition if she didn't run off after her performance. I've seen a lot of performances, but you brought fire to yours, Gwynn. It was stunning." She settled into the facing chair, smoothing her skirt across her knees. "What changed?" Gwynn shrugged. A spider crept along the baseboard behind Novella's chair. Her father leaned forward. "I think she ran because she didn't know what else to do. It's what she does. She makes these situations and then she runs, and we love her, but..." "Let's pause there, Torin." Novella's voice was gentle, but definite. "I want to hear how Gwynn would say it." Gwynn bowed her head lower. The spider disappeared under the desk. "She gets like this sometimes," Torin said. "It's what I was trying to say in the letters." Novella looked at her father for a long moment, candlelight dancing across her features. "You're watching her all the time, aren't you?" Her father's hand stilled on Gwynn's shoulders. "I don't know how to do it anymore." "We like to ask parents to step out for this part. Bornson has a place with a blue door 2 streets north. Tell him I sent you. Eat something. Take your time. We'll come get you when we're done." "Won't you need me to answer questions?" "We've got your papers right here." Novella gestured to the desk without looking at it. "But..." "You can rest, Torin." He lifted his hands from Gwynn's shoulders. The cold rushed into the space where his warmth had been. He came around the chair and crouched in front of her. "Is that okay with you, Feather?" Gwynn shrugged. He searched her face for something, then straightened, took a deep breath that shuddered at the top, and left. The door closed behind him with a soft click, and the festival noise cut to a murmur. Gwynn stayed curled in her chair. The candle on the desk guttered in the draft from the door, then steadied. Novella sat across from her, one ankle crossed over the other, hands resting in her lap. She didn't reach for the papers on the desk, or pull out a pen. Instead, she simply breathed. Seconds passed. The muffled thump of festival drums leaked through the walls. Eventually, Gwynn looked up. "Aren't you going to ask me stuff?" "I'm sure you've had your fill of questions." Novella paused. "I wanted to give you a moment to breathe first." "I'm fine." "All right, we can start with fine." Something about the way she said it made Gwynn uncurl slightly. She lowered her legs from the chair, boots finding the uneven floor. "I'm not crazy. I don't need help." Novella said nothing. The candle flickered. "Please don't take me away." "Who told you that's what happens here?" My dad and Mom. Gwyn's throat tightened. You're going to tell me something is wrong with me and take me from my family. That does sound scary. It sounds like you really want to stay. Gwyn's fingers found the edge of her sleeve, twisting it until the fabric bit into her skin. I tried, though. I wrote them a song. I heard it. Something warm crossed Nevaeh's face before she steadied it. That's not a small thing, making something like that. What were you hoping it would do? Gwyn shrugged, eyes on the floor. Fix it? Fix it, Nevaeh repeated. Then she fell quiet again. My siblings helped. The words came out slowly, pulled from somewhere she didn't want to reach. They helped me to... She stopped. They helped me to make it good enough that... Her voice broke apart. Gwyn curled forward, pressing her face into her knees, and cried. She pressed harder to muffle it, but the sound escaped anyway, raw and animal and small. After a moment, Nevaeh set a handkerchief on the arm of Gwyn's chair, close enough to reach. Gwyn ignored it. The fabric sat there, pale against the dark wood. Useless. Good enough for what, Gwyn? The words came out broken, wet, barely words at all. That they still want me. And it didn't work? Gwyn shook her head against her knees. Why did you have to come? The question was directed at the floor, at the warped boards, at anything that wasn't Nevaeh. Because things got big enough that they didn't know how to help you on their own. Nevaeh's voice softened. That's not the same as not wanting you. Gwyn wiped her face on her sleeve, leaving a dark streak across the flame-colored fabric. She sniffed hard, swallowed, and forced her voice flat. Okay. Can you just ask your first question? All right. Nevaeh settled back in her chair, and the wood groaned beneath her. When things start to feel like they have to be fixed, what happens first? Nothing. Nothing? I just see how to do things, but it's not anything special. Anyone could do it. Walk me through one. What do you mean? It's just having an idea. Then let's slow it down. Pick one. Gwyn shrank in her chair, her shoulders pulling toward her ears. You mean the lake? It could be. You get a pick. Well, super flag. Gwyn's voice found a semblance of its usual shape. I tied the festival flags all together. I thought it would look better. That's a lot of flags. How long were you working on it? All night. You must have been very tired. Not really. Gwyn focused on her boots, kicking them together. It was beautiful. And when it was all done, did it still feel beautiful? Gwyn's eyes stung. She shook her head. Everyone was mad at me. That's a hard turn. It was beautiful, then everyone was upset. Stop it. Gwyn scrunched her dress fabric in a fist. You're just being nice because that's your job. I know you want to ask me about the lake, so stop pretending like you care about Superflag. You think I'm pretending? Your feet are facing the door. You don't want to be here with me. So just ask about the lake. Nevaeh glanced down at her own feet, then back at Gwyn. Something shifted in her expression. You notice a lot, but I'm still here, aren't I? Gwyn had nothing for that. The candle popped, spitting a bead of wax onto the desk. It seems important to you to know what interests me, Nevaeh said. Gwyn nodded once. Then I'll be honest. I would very much like to hear about the lake. What happened? It was a while ago, I guess. Gwyn stared at a knot in the wood past Nevaeh's shoulder. I was going to set a record. Set a record? Yeah. Getting across the lake fast. I knew how to do it. It's about how you jump in, right? Walk me through it. I just thought about my Aunt Miri. She loved to swim. Then her words stopped. What was she doing? But the words continued. And I'm like her. I know I am. So I thought I could do it better. Another pause. Smaller. But then the swimming wouldn't work. I couldn't do it right. She gestured vaguely, her hands drawing something in the air she couldn't finish. The ranger, Beth, pulled me out, and she broke my ribs. The gesture died, and then I was back. She dropped her voice to almost nothing, and I still didn't break the record. When you think about it now, does it still feel like it should have worked? Sort of. Sort of. The air in the room thickened, harder to breathe. Gwynn looked at her fingers, tumbling her thumbs over each other. She's dead now, Aunt Miri, Gwynn whispered. You were close to her. I'm a lot like her. Gwynn trailed off, looking at her hands in her lap. The shimmer of her flicker ghosted at her fingertips, involuntary, barely there. She folded her hands together to hide it. Is it going to happen to me too? What do you think happened to her? The room was very quiet. The festival had faded, or Gwynn had stopped hearing it. Will you tell my dad what I say? You're safe here. We can talk about what I'll share with... I saw it, Gwynn said. Her eyes immediately stung, and something sharp pierced her chest. She was smiling, and I lied to Mom, but I saw it, and... She squeezed her eyes shut. I saw it. You saw something very hard. She did it on purpose. Walked off the island, and she was there, but then she wasn't, and I never saw her again. You should have never had to see that. Gwynn looked away. That is a lot to be carrying around, Gwynn. She paused, considering. Sometimes when we lose someone we love, we wonder if we'll end up the same way. Is that something you've wondered about? Gwynn's body went tight. The flicker surged, her arms fading to rainbow mist, her outline softening, her chair visible through her torso. I need to ask, have you ever thought about hurting yourself? Nevaeh's tone was neutral. After a long moment, Gwynn nodded once. I'm sorry. You don't need to be sorry, Gwynn. Do you feel like that now? Gwynn shook her head, flicker intensifying. Finally, she looked up, meeting Nevaeh's eyes. Does it ever stop? The storms? Novella opened her mouth to respond, but Gwynn interrupted. Actually, can we just be quiet? We can. The room settled. The drums outside had stopped, or moved on to another street. Gwynn solidified slowly, first her hands, then her arms, then the rest of her, piece by piece, returning to the chair. Okay, Gwynn said. Nevaeh asked about the other times, the quieter days. Gwynn went still. Everything felt heavy and far away. Can we be done? Please? Just let me go home. I hate this. I think we're ready to bring your father back, Nevaeh said. Her father came back, smelling like bread and looking like he'd been crying. He settled into the third chair beside Gwynn, one hand finding her knee. Nevaeh spoke carefully. I want to be honest with you, both of you. Our program is built for children who need structure and a safer environment while they learn to manage difficult feelings. Nevaeh's gaze moved between them. Gwynn's situation is more complex than what we're equipped to handle. The mood fluctuations, the impulsivity, the intensity of her emotional responses. Placing her here would mean forcing her into a framework that wasn't built for her. It would do more harm than good. Her father's face went white. So she's just unfixable? She's not something to be fixed, Torin. That's not what I... He stopped. His jaw trembled. Then what do we do? You're the church. You're supposed to have answers. I can give you some guidance. Strategies for recognizing when a storm is building before it peaks. Techniques to help her come down. Nevaeh's voice was steady, but not cold. Steady the way a hand on a shaking table is steady. But fundamentally, the answer isn't a program. It's building supports in her daily life to keep her safe. We can't keep her safe, he said. That's why we came to you. I know. Nevaeh held his gaze. And I'm telling you that the answer isn't here. She needs those supports, and they can't all be you. You need people around you for this. Get her in school, connect with neighbors you can talk to, find time to go out alone with your wife. You need systems, not one program. Gwynn's father stared at her. Then his face crumpled, not the way it had at the theater, not with anger or shock, but slowly, like it was giving way beneath its own weight. He put his head in his hands. "I don't know what to do," he whispered. Novella let him sit with it. She didn't fill the silence. He lifted his head. His eyes were red and hollow. "I love her. I love her so much." They sat with that. The candle had burned low, the wax pooling on the desk in a pale disk. The festival sounds had shifted, fewer drums, more singing. The night was getting old. "Let me give you a moment to talk alone." Novella stood. "I'll have those strategies written up before you go." She paused at the door, one hand on the frame, and looked back. "Gwynn?" Gwynn looked up. "I'd like to take you out to lunch, every few roosts, just you and I. Anywhere in the city, your choice. We'll just chat. Does that sound okay?" Gwynn shrugged. Novella looked to her father. "I usually work in the North District, just past the bank, green floral door. If she ever is in danger, if you ever don't know what to do, come find me." The door closed behind her. Gwynn and her father sat in the room, with its warped floors and guttering candle. The festival drifted through the walls. Music, laughter, life continuing without them. "I'm sorry, Gwendolyn," her father said. She didn't correct the name. They sat there in silence, her father's breathing uneven, Gwynn staring at nothing. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely audible. "Gwynn, I love you," he said, his voice cracked. "I love you so much, but loving you," he swallowed. "Loving you is the hardest thing I've ever done." The words settled between them. Gwynn nodded slowly. "I know. I don't want you to feel like a burden, but I'm so tired, Feather, and I don't know how to stop it." "Okay," Gwynn said quietly. Her father reached for her hand. "I wish I was better at this. I wish I knew how to help you. I wish—" He trailed off. "I just wish things were different." Gwynn looked at their joined hands. "What if this is just who I am?" Her father closed his eyes. "I don't know how to accept that." They sat like that for a long moment, holding hands. Finally, her father stood. "Let's go home." The wagon was dark when they arrived. Her neighbors must have taken her siblings somewhere again, giving them space. Gwynn pushed open the door. A sliver of light came from her parents' room. The curtain parted, just enough to see inside. Her mother lay in bed, still in her festival clothes, staring at the ceiling. The room was dim, but Gwynn could see her face, empty, hollow. The light that had been there this morning was gone. Their eyes met. "I love you, Gwynn," her mother whispered. Her voice was flat, distant, like it was coming from very far away. She didn't get up, didn't reach out, just lay there, looking at Gwynn with eyes that couldn't quite focus. "I love you too, Mom," Gwynn said quietly. Her mother's eyes drifted back to the ceiling. Gwynn stood there for a moment longer, then moved to her room. Spore lay on his blanket in the corner, exactly where she'd left him. His sides rose and fell in shallow, rattling breaths. She crossed to him, sank to the floor, and put her hand on his back. Still warm, still here. Her father stood in the doorway, watching. "Gwynn, You can go," she said quietly. "I'm okay. I don't want to leave you alone. I'm not alone." He looked at the old dog. After a moment, he left. The door closed softly. Gwynn lay down beside Spore and pressed her face into his fur. He smelled terrible, but she didn't care. Outside, the festival raged on. Music and laughter and transformation, people celebrating who they were becoming. Gwynn closed her eyes. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, didn't know how to be the person her father needed her to be, didn't know if she'd ever stop being too much, too fast, too wrong. But Spore was still breathing, and she was still breathing. And for now, that was enough. She pressed closer to his warmth and let his breathing become hers. She felt for Miri's locket, her locket. This storm will pass. The sun is near. She read it again. This storm will pass. The sun is near. Again. This storm will pass. The sun is near. She held Spore. Together, they were two things that couldn't be less. Beautiful, wild things. The end. Gwynn's story continues in The Seven Rangers, Volume 1, Harvest. Afterward. Oh, thank you for listening to Beautiful Wild Things. I'd like to be candid for a moment. This book is a difficult one for me to place in terms of marketing, with the protagonist's age, themes, and setting all competing to determine who the audience should be. Here's the truth. Without word of mouth, this book dies in ambiguity. If you enjoyed the book, the best way you can possibly support me is to share it with a person you think it would touch. The second best way is to support the book by leaving a review on Amazon, Goodreads, and so on. Spreading the word breathes new life into the story, and I couldn't be more thankful. Acknowledgements. I'd like to thank my wonderful wife, who helped me shape this book into what it became. I'd like to thank my artist, Miriam Vega, for making my world a visual reality, both on the cover and in the back matter. To my care team over the years, thank you. Without you, I wouldn't be here to write this book. Lastly, a big shout out to lithium carbonate. You make my hands shake, but my mind steady. About the author. This is my second time around the block, a second chance to write one of these properly in the third person. I simply refuse. This is the part of the book where I get to talk directly to you, the reader, and tell you a bit about myself. No need to be too formal. Mr. Penrod is my father and all that. I'm Jacob. I've been telling stories as long as I can remember and studying craft books for over a decade. My earliest stories were written in second grade, typed on a tiny word processor, likely intended for my father's work. But one story about my personal pets fighting the evil fox army, and 20 years later, here I am. The best way to know the author is to read my work, which presumably you have by this point. I say this because I pour so much of myself into these characters and stories that it's like inviting you into my mind for a few hours to see what I'm made of. Of all the characters I've crafted, Gwynn has stuck with me the most. It could be my own struggles with bipolar disorder. It could be how fun she is to write. It could be both or neither. Thank you for giving me 100-some-odd pages to share her with you and tell part of her story. Whether this is where we conclude our time together or you meet me again in a sequel, may your storms pass and the sun be near.